I think we owe the commissioner some thanks, too, for including us. It's a beautiful ring. Thank you.
That's right, presented by Commissioner Kuhn. 1 out, nobody on. A 2-run lead for the American League in the 9th inning. A fly ball into right field. K-line calling for it, and there are 2 down now. The American League 1 out away from snapping an 8-game losing streak. The National League is going to lose this one if this pop-up is caught. Brooks Robinson up on the mound. It's all over. The American League finally wins one. 8 games in a row they'd lost. They lost 12 of their last 13. But here in Tiger Town tonight, the American League 6 runs, 7 hits, and no errors. The National League 4 runs, 5 hits, and no errors.
Carl Sandburg said it best when he called Chicago hog butcher for the world, tool maker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads, and the nation's freight handler. Stormy, husky, brawling city of the big shoulders. Home of Lakeshore Drive and the Loop, the Wrigley Building and Wrigley Field, Soldier Field and the lake itself, and one of the world's great promenades, Michigan Avenue. The Sears Building and the signature of John Hancock added to the skyline. And on the south side, a 600-square-foot lot at 35th and Shields Avenue, purchased for $100,000 by Charles Comiskey from the estate of the city's first mayor, John Wentworth. Designed by Zachary Taylor Davis, it was to become Comiskey Park in 1910, home to the first All-Star game in 1933. NBC's All-Star Anniversary Scrapbook begins, appropriately enough, with the Bambino. Babe Ruth hit the first All-Star home run in the first game 50 years ago today in Comiskey Park. Presents the 50th anniversary of Major League Baseball's All-Star Game. Brought to you by Polaroid. The fun starts when you share Polaroid instant pictures. And by light beer from Miller. Everything you've always wanted in a beer and less.
You know, Joe, a wise philosopher once wrote that a man should have very old memories and very young hopes. Let's talk about memories.
Okay.
I was a kid growing up in the bleachers and the polo grounds in New York, and I cried when Carl Hubble lost a ball game. What about you? Did you dare dream of becoming a ball player?
I was like, I think every kid, I not only dreamed of being a ball player, I wanted to play for the St. Louis Cardinals, and I wanted to play for the hometown team.
Don Quixote would have said, that's dreaming the impossible dream. You not only made that, did you dare dream that you might someday play in the World Series?
I was dreaming not only playing it, Ben, but to hit that home run in the bottom of the 9th inning and we would win by 1 run. I'd be the big hero, and of course I did realize the dream of playing in the World Series, but no home runs.
And you know what? You came very close to playing in an all-star game.
Yes, I did. That was 1950. I think it's the one year that I wish that I could have played all year. I suffered a serious shoulder injury. I was out the rest of the year, and I was kind of hoping that they would even make me an honorary player.
You know, they're still dreaming. Lee Smith of the Chicago Cubs had a dream last night that he was going to strike out Dave Winfield tonight with the bases loaded. Let's go to Bob Costa.
All right, thanks very much, Vin and Joe. As you mentioned earlier, this ballpark, oldest in the major leagues at 73, was the site of the first All-Star game 50 years ago to the day. The American Leaguers enjoyed things then. They won 12 of the first 16 Midsummer Classics, and they won the first one 4-2 with the help of a Babe Ruth home run. Yesterday afternoon here at Comiskey Park, the U.S. Postal Service dedicated a Babe Ruth commemorative stamp. And that sent us at NBC scurrying to our files for some vintage film of the Sultan of Swat talking about some of the most memorable moments in his legendary career. Let's share it now.
But I will say that I've had thrills before, number of them. Something like hitting a home run in Chicago that time. The Lord was with me when I called the shots. If he hadn't been with me, why, it'd have been just too bad. I can't go on forever. Somebody's got to take my shoes and take my place. But you can bet your sweet life that I won't play until I drop, but I'll play until I damn near drop. Thank you. Yeah. You want to do me a favor? I'd love to. Well, go away from here and let me sleep. All right, that goes for you camera fellas, too.
All right, Babe, we'll step aside for just a minute, but we're coming back with a look at this year's top All-Star vote-getter. Welcome back to Comiskey Park in Chicago in this 50th anniversary All-Star Game celebration. You know, no method of selecting an All-Star team is perfect. Whether the fans vote, as is now the custom, whether the players and managers select the All-Stars, or if the writers do it, there's always going to be controversy. And to a certain extent, that's probably good, because it gets people interested, gets them talking about the national pastime. Let's take a look now at some of the players people have been talking about and voting for in 1983. National League's top vote-getter was the ever-popular catcher of the Montreal Expos, many times an All-Star, Gary Carter. The overall top vote-getter in both major leagues, last year's American League MVP, Robin Yount, of the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, the pitchers are selected by the managers, and tonight's starter for the National League will be the Cincinnati Reds' Mario Soto, second in the senior circuit in strikeouts. Dave Steve is the choice for the American Leaguers, the 10-game winner of the Toronto Blue Jays, a definite Cy Young Award candidate. On the subject of pitching, a new wrinkle tonight, the NBC Tracer will be able to trace the path a pitch takes so that you can tell the difference between breaking balls, sliders, fastballs, changeups, whatever. And to help us understand it, in our New York studios, Don Sutton will comment for us. He's been known to do mysterious things with a baseball himself. We mentioned earlier there's always controversy about who does and doesn't make the team. Among the well-known names not in the All-Star lineups tonight, Steve Carlton closing in on 300 wins, and Nolan Ryan of the Houston Astros, who's engaged in a battle, of course, with Lefty for the all-time strikeout lead. Ray Knight is hitting .336, second in the National League at this stage, but he's not here. And neither is the youngster Wade Boggs of the Boston Red Sox, who's batting .356, second to Rod Carews' .402 in the American League. First base is a position brimming over with stars in the National League, and perhaps that in part explains why Pete Rose and Steve Garvey aren't here tonight, but still it'll seem strange without them. Special room was made for a pair of sentimental favorites. They're each retiring this year, and Johnny Bench makes a farewell appearance for the National League. Carl Yastrzemski does the same for the American. Bench has played on only one losing team in an All-Star game, Yaz on only one winning team. National League dominance, a source of senior circuit pride, American League embarrassment. We asked some players why.
Pride.
Enthusiasm.
Awesome. Great.
Porque son los mejores.
Pitching.
Enjoyment.
Power. Awesome.
Of course, there are two sides to every question, so here are some American League answers.
Luck.
Confident.
A combination of good hitting and pitching.
Strange, uncharacteristic. Lucky. Cottage cheese.
We're going to kill him.
Cottage cheese? Well, I guess that's as good an answer as any. When we come back, a filmed look at some all-time All-Stars. A walk down All-Star memory lane next. Yesterday afternoon at Comiskey Park, a heartwarming scene. Perhaps the greatest old-timers game ever. More than 80 all-time greats. It was like an animated collection of bubblegum cards. DiMaggio, regal as always. 45-year-old Billy Williams hit one in the upper deck in right field. Willie Mays gliding back effortlessly, looking like it was 20 years ago, making basket catches. It was a day that stirred memories. And now as you look at this film piece, perhaps you'll recall some of the baseball times of your life.
Good morning, yesterday. You wake up and time has slipped away, and suddenly it's hard to find the memories you left behind. Remember, do you remember the laughter and the tears, the shadows of misty yesteryears, the good times and the bad you've seen, and all the others in between? Remember, do you remember the times of your life? Reach back for the joy and the sorrow, put them away in your mind, for memories are time that you borrow to spend when you get to tomorrow. Here comes the setting sun. The seasons are passing one by one, so gather moments while you may collect the dreams you dreamed today. Remember, will you remember the times of your life? Gather moments while you may collect the dreams you dreamed today. Remember, will you remember the times of your life? Of your life. Of your
What memories. And tonight, another page will be added to the All-Star scrapbook. Up in the booth, Vin and Joe are tuning up. They'll be set to call it for you. When we return, we'll have the introduction of the lineups. The 50th anniversary All-Star game is moments away. But first, let's go to New York and NBC News.
It's July 6th, 1933. Baseball's first All-Star game in Chicago's Comiskey Park. And the hero is Babe Ruth, who hits the first home run in All-Star play to lead the American League to a 4-2 victory. It's now 50 years later, and California's Fred Lynn steps to the plate in Chicago's same Comiskey Park. With one swing of the bat, Lynn's name is forever bound with roots in the continuing folklore that has come to be our national pastime. Lynn's Grand Slam home run is the first in a half-century of All-Star competition. Another in an unending line of unforgettable moments that help us celebrate 50 years of golden memories with the 1983 All-Star Game. With the presence of the inaugural All-Star Game still lingering somewhere in the air, over 43,000 people welcomed the 50th anniversary game back to Comiskey Park. This time, the fans wonder if Whitey Herzog can manage the National League past Harvey Keene in the American League for a record 12th straight time. Hopeful that they can take home memories they'll cherish forever. One such memory comes with the appearance of the honorary National League captain, Ernie Banks, the legendary Chicago Cubs shortstop, whose 19 years of basking in the Wrigley Field sunshine is warmly remembered. Remembered, too, is Joe Cronin, also a Hall of Fame shortstop, who today is acting as the American League captain exactly 50 years after he started in the first All-Star Game in 1933. On this day, the fans also salute a third shortstop, Robin Yount of the Milwaukee Brewers, the player who received the most votes in the fans' All-Star election. As game time approaches, the crowd is treated to a touch of living history when ex-Yankee Lefty Gomez and 12 other original All-Stars commemorate their appearance in the 1933 game by throwing out this night's first ball. The opening festivities are now just memories, and it's time to play ball.
Sports presents the 1983 All-Star Game, the 50th anniversary. Brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By light beer from Miller, everything you've always wanted in a beer and less. By Xerox, managing information around the office and around the world. And by Honda, the world's largest manufacturer of motorcycles and ATC three-wheelers. Follow the leader. He's on a Honda.
Comiskey Park, Chicago. Hi, everybody. I'm Vin Scully, along with Joe Garagiola. Pull up a chair, have a piece of our 50th anniversary cake, and have a ball. Well, we've already talked about the old memories. Now it's time to talk about a lot of young hopes, and it's the 1983 game. What do you see going into this one?
Well, Vin, it almost is a traditional All-Star game, and then we're going to see American League power and National League speed. You listen to Whitey Herzog talk, and he has a don't steal sign. He's going to turn everybody loose, and it's pretty obvious that they're going to try to find out if Ted Simmons, the American League catcher, can throw. Beginning with Sachs, Raines, Dawson. So I think the only thing going to be missing is a baton and maybe a track meet.
There will be two switch hitters in the starting lineup for the National League. The two switch hitters for the American League. Wilson will be on the bench along with Eddie Murray, and we'll see action with them, I'm sure. But I really think that if the National League can put some pressure on Simmons early in the ballgame, it'll make the American League task that much tougher.
Well, it's going to be tough, though, because Dave Steve is just an outstanding pitcher. And when I asked Pat Dobson, one of the coaches, I said, what kind of a move does he have? He said, I don't know. We never got anybody on base against him. So it's Steve against Soto, two fine pitchers. A big crowd, should be a big night.
Oh, indeed. And we'll be taking a look at the starting lineups. But first, we'll have the introductions, and we will go to our public address announcer for doing just that, and that would be Wayne Mesmer.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, It's time to meet the teams for this 50th anniversary Major League All-Star Game. First, here are the National League All-Stars. From the Atlanta Braves, second baseman, Glenn Hubbard. Catcher, Bruce Benedict. And pitcher, Pascual Perez. Representing the Chicago Cubs, outfielder, Leon Durham. And pitcher, Lee Smith. From the Cincinnati Reds, selected for his 14th and final All-Star game, Johnny Bench. Representing the Houston Astros, shortstop, Dickie Thon. And pitcher, Bill Dawley. From the Los Angeles Dodgers, Pedro Guerrero. And pitcher, Fernando Valenzuela. Representing the Montreal Expos, pitcher, Steve Rogers. From the New York Mets, pitcher, Jesse Orozco. Representing the Pittsburgh Pirates, third baseman, Bill Madlock. From the St. Louis Cardinals, outfielder, George Hendrick. And outfielder, Willie McGee. Representing the San Diego Padres, catcher, Terry Kennedy. And pitcher, Dave Dravecki. And from the San Francisco Giants, pitcher, Atley Hammaker. First baseman, Darrell Evans. And pitcher, Gary Lavelle. Now the National League coaches. Representing the Atlanta Braves, number 9, Joe Torre. And from the Los Angeles Dodgers, Tom Lasorda. And the rest of the National League staff. From the Philadelphia Phillies, Pat Corrales. Representing the St. Louis Cardinals, Chuck Hiller. In the National League bullpen, also from the St. Louis Cardinals, Dave Ricketts. And the National League trainers, Dave Pursley from the Atlanta Braves, and Tony Garofalo from the Chicago Cubs. In keeping with this 50th anniversary of the All-Star Game, tonight we will introduce the starters in the first game, followed by tonight's starters by position. Now, the starting lineup for the National League All-Star. In 1933, the starting second baseman was Frankie Frisch of the St. Louis Cardinals. Tonight, playing second base and leading off for the National League from the Los Angeles Dodgers, Steve Sax. In 1933, the Cincinnati Reds, Chick Happy started in left field. Tonight, the left fielder representing the Montreal Expos and batting second, Tim Raines. In 1933, 1933, the Cincinnati Reds' Wally Berger was the center fielder. Tonight, from the Montreal Expos, the center fielder is Andre Dawson, batting in the third position. In 1933, Bill Terry of the New York Giants started at first base. Tonight, the first baseman will be, from the Montreal Expos, Al Oliver, hitting fourth. In 1933, the National League's right fielder was Chuck Klein from the Philadelphia Phillies. Tonight, playing right field and batting fifth from the Atlanta Braves, Dale Murphy. In 1933, the starter at third base was the St. Louis Cardinals' Pepper Martin. Tonight, the third baseman batting sixth from the Philadelphia Phillies, Mike Schmidt. In 1933, the starting catcher was Jimmy Wilson of the St. Louis Cardinals. Tonight, catching for the National League, representing the Montreal Expos, Gary Carter, batting in the seventh position. In 1933, the Philadelphia Phillies' Dick Bartell started at shortstop. Tonight, at shortstop and batting eighth from the St. Louis Cardinals, Ozzie Smith. In 1933, Wild Bill Hallahan from the St. Louis Cardinals was the starting pitcher. Tonight, starting for the National League and batting ninth from the Cincinnati Reds, Mario Soto, warming up in the bullpen. The National League manager in 1933 was John McGraw. And now, the manager of the 50th anniversary National League All-Stars from the defending world champion St. Louis Cardinals, Whitey Herzog. And now, let's meet the 1983 American League All-Star. Shortstop, Cal Ripken Jr. Pitcher, Tippy Martinez. And first baseman, Eddie Murray. Representing the Boston Red Sox, selected for his 18th and final All-Star game, Carl Yastrzemski. Pitcher, Bob Stanley. From the California Angels, catcher, Bob Boone. And third baseman, Doug DeCense. Representing the Chicago White Sox, Cleveland Indians, pitcher Rick Sutcliffe. Representing the Detroit Tigers, second baseman Lou Whitaker. Catcher Lance Parrish. And pitcher Aurelio Lopez. From the Kansas City Royals, outfielder Willie Wilson. And pitcher Dan Quisenberry. Representing the Milwaukee Brewers, first baseman Cecil Cooper. And outfielder Ben Oglivie. From the Minnesota Twins, outfielder Gary Ward. Representing the Oakland A's, outfielder Ricky Henderson. From the Seattle Mariners, pitcher Matt Young. And from the Texas Rangers, pitcher Rick Honeycutt. Now the American League coaches. From the Baltimore Orioles, Joe Altobelli. And representing the Minnesota Twins, Billy Gardner. And the rest of the American League staff. From the Chicago White Sox, Glenn Rosenbaum. Representing the Milwaukee Brewers, Pat Dobson. And in the American League bullpen, also from the Milwaukee Brewers, Larry Haney. And the American League trainers, Herm Schneider of the Chicago White Sox. And Freddie Federico from the Milwaukee Brewers. Once again, we'll introduce both the 1933 and the 1983 starters for the American League. In 1933, the American League's first baseman was Lou Gehrig from the New York Yankees. Tonight, playing first base and leading off from the California Angels, Rod Carew. In 1933, the Washington Senators playing manager Joe Cronin was the shortstop. Tonight, batting second and playing shortstop, representing the Milwaukee Brewers, Robin Yount. In 1933, Al Simmons of the Chicago White Sox was the center fielder. Tonight, hitting in the third position and playing center field from the California Angels, Fred Lynn. In 1933, Ben Chapman of the New York Yankees started in left field. Tonight, representing the Boston Red Sox, playing left field and batting fourth, Jim Rice. In 1933, Jimmy Dykes from the Chicago White Sox was the American League's starting third baseman. Tonight, starting at third base from the Kansas City Royals, George Brett, batting fifth. In 1933, Rick Farrell of the Boston Red Sox was the American League catcher. Tonight, from the Milwaukee Brewers, catching and batting sixth, Ted Simmons. In 1933, the American League's right fielder was the great Yankee, Babe Ruth. Tonight, starting in right field and batting seventh, also from the New York Yankees, Dave Winfield. In 1933, the Detroit Tigers' Charlie Gehringer was the American League's second baseman. Tonight, playing second base and batting eighth, representing the Cleveland Indians, Manny Trio. In 1933, the American League's starting pitcher was Lefty Gomez of the New York Yankees. Tonight, that honor goes to the Toronto Blue Jays, Dave Steve, warming up in the bullpen. 1933, the American League manager was Connie Mack. And now, the 1983 American League All-Star Team's manager from the defending American League champion Milwaukee Brewers, Harvey Key. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is our privilege to introduce to you the honorary captains for this 50th anniversary Major League All-Star Game. Representing the National League, a man who played 19 years right here in Chicago, who hit 512 home runs, and who became known simply as Mr. Cub, number 14, Ernie Banks.
The great Ernie Banks, twice MVP, 11 years an All-Star, a member of the Hall of Fame. Mr. Cub, no longer associated with the Chicago organization. He'd look at a night like tonight and say it's a great day to play too. And the chant wells up, Ernie, Ernie, and he gets a salute, not from the South Side, but from all of Chicago and all of baseball. 52-year-old Ernie Banks. And in a moment, the honorary captain for the American League.
The American League's honorary captain was a Hall of Fame shortstop, the manager of both the Washington Senators and Boston Red Sox, a former American League president, and is currently chairman of the board of the American League, Mr. Joe Cronin.
76-year-old Joe Cronin. You talk about a man who can do it all. A shortstop in 1933, a member of the Hall of Fame, a manager of the Washington Redskins, the Washington Senators, the Boston Red Sox, president of the American League, chairman of the board. He has touched all the bases. Joe Cronin.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, will you please rise as Chuck Mangione plays the beautiful Canadian national anthem, O Canada. To honor America, the Oak Ridge Boys will sing the Star-Spangled Banner.
By the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched, bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
And the stage is set for the 50th anniversary game of the All-Star, where it all began. July the 6th, 1933, and up to date. And in a moment, the big show will be getting underway.
Baseball fever. Catch it. It lasts forever.
The preceding message was furnished by Major League Baseball.
Chicago, much more than a dawdling town. It's the home of the 50th anniversary of the All-Star Game at Comiskey Park, where it all began. New York has held the All-Star Game 7 times at Ebbets Field, Apollo Grounds, Yankee Stadium, and Shea Stadium. For Chicago, 5 times. This is the 3rd time at Comiskey Park, twice at Wrigley Field, and Lefty Gomez, who drove in a run in that 33 game, has the privilege of throwing out the first ball, Joe.
Oh, what a tremendous day out here yesterday, and right now, around that mound, some greats: Earl Averill, Dick Bartell, Ben Chapman, Wally Berger, Tony Cuccinello, Bill Dickey, Rick Farrell, Charlie Gehringer, Hal Schumacher, and Sammy West.
You know, there's the great feeling of nostalgia. There is also the bittersweet feeling here of the dominance of the National League. The fact that they have won 11 straight. But to put it in proper perspective, the American League has won 1 All-Star game since 1962. What that means is the American League has won 1 All-Star game since Kennedy was president. Won 1 All-Star game since Pete Rose broke into the majors. The American League has won 1 All-Star game in the lifetime of current Major Leaguer Jose Oquendo of the Mets. And there was a Washington Senator on that American League team, Frank Howard. That really lets you know it's been a long time between wins.
Well, they got a man on the mound tonight, a power pitcher, Dave Steve. Many people consider him the best pitcher in the American League. He's a hard-throwing right-hander, a hard slider. He'll ride the fastball. He'll sink it, has good control. So very few change of paces, and probably the best fielder among the pitchers in baseball. He is a tremendous athlete, and his problem was just trying to control a competitive anger, let's call it that. He didn't like for things not to go his way.
You know, with that record of 10-7, the Jays averaged 2 runs for each of his 7 losses. He allowed only 10 earned runs in his 10 victories, and he's strong. He made 134 pitches to beat the Yankees 6-5. He scored 5 unearned runs. He had successive 10-inning starts, and he won 3-1 and 2-1. He beat Kansas City with 139 pitches, and he should have more wins. He led 4-0 in the 9th inning against Detroit, and the bullpen let him down. Led 3-1 in the 8th inning against the Angels, and the bullpen couldn't hold it, and he lost 2-1 in Texas. In other words, we're looking at some kind of pitcher as he gets ready to pitch to Steve Sachs, Tim Raines, and Andre Dawson. The American League with Rod Carew and Manny Trio, Robin Yount, and George Brett on the infield, Jim Rice, Freddie Lynn, and Dave Winfield in the outfield.
Sachs is a good first ball hitter. It'll be interesting to see if he'll take a look at Steve. It's a first-time look for him. Steve will be trying to get ahead of him. You can bet on that.
He is the youngest player to spart in this year's All-Star game. He's 23 years old. Good hard slider for a strike. In case you wonder, the youngest player in an All-Star game, Butch Winnegar, back in 1976, was only 20 years old. Fouled away off to the right upstairs. 0-2. The dimensions here at Comiskey Park, or Sox Park, 341 down the lines, falling away to 374 up the alleys, to 401 in straightaway center. But boy, when it was first built, it was an airport. 1-2. When Comiskey Park was first built, with the guidance of Ed Walsh, it was 362 down the lines and 420 to center.
Pitcher's park, no doubt. That last pitch, he just handcuffed Simmons. That's the kind of stuff he's got.
0-2. 1-2. The lights have not taken effect as yet. A bright blue sky overhead. So it will be particularly tough for the hitters this early in the game. 2-2. Hit foul, out of play. By the way, for the history majors who are listening in, and we referred to the mayor, the first mayor of Chicago is John Wentworth. Actually, the first mayor was William Butler Ogden. John Wentworth was the first Republican mayor, and it was from his estate that this real estate was purchased for $100,000. Little number up along first. Steve down to get it. Flips high. Throws it over Carew's head, and Sachs is aboard.
That comes under the heading of man bites dog. You just do not see Dave Steve do that. He's too good a fielder. It looked like it just squibbed out. He had Sachs completely fooled, and he's got an easy play once he gets the ball. Carew on the inside, he just threw it right over his head. Look at the reaction that Steve himself makes, and now Simmons says, bear down, try to hold him on, but you can bet that these National Leaguers will be off and running.
And the one thing about Sachs, showing the speed that we were talking about in this National League lineup right up at the top, Sachs gets aboard. I was very careful to make sure he stayed in the lane. When he left home plate, I thought he was going to run inside the line, but he suddenly realized it and got inside the restraining line and made the play legitimate. Here is Tim Raines, the left fielder. Good numbers, and he runs exceptionally well. Of the National League speed and the fact that Ted Simmons does not have a good throwing arm, Dave Steve is going to have to tie up the runners. There's a lot of pressure on Ted Simmons tonight.
I would doubt that Raines would be bunting unless he'd be bunting for the base hit early in this game. And Sachs, Raines, Dawson, Oliver, Murphy, Schmidt, and Smith all can go on their own.
I think on a 1-0 count he's going to go. He's already seen his move. He doesn't go, and the pitch is fouled away. Sachs has 29 stolen bases. He's been caught 12. And I really thought that he had seen that very good move, and he was ready. Evidently, he didn't get the jump. He doesn't go, and the breaking ball is low. Ball 2, 2-1.
Here's that manager's delight, though. 2 balls and 1 strike when they got the catcher in the box.
Again, Sachs acting like a man who'd like to go, and again, Steve spotted it and drives him back. And there he goes. The pitch outside, bad throw behind the runner, an easy steal.
Raines did a good job in the batter's box. Simmons had a slight hesitation as he went to throw, as Raines kind of leaned into it. Watch it as he takes the pitch. Now watch right there. Then he ducks his way, and the throw was kind of a 3/4. It sunk, it sailed a bit, and Sachs, who had a pretty good jump, and it's a straight steal. He's looking for that bag. He's not even worried about what's going to happen to the ball, and he's got a stolen base.
It was the second time that he looked like he wanted to go. The first time, as we told you, I thought he was going to go 1-0, and he didn't get the jump. And then the second time it looked like he wanted to go, and he did 2-1, and he made it. So now it's 3-1 to count to Tim Raines. Sachs at second, nobody out, just the start of things. Breaking ball hit back to Steve. He looks Sachs back and throws it to Carew, who lost the ball, I guess, in the squinting sunlight that remains. Sachs to the plate. The ball gets away from Simmons, and Sachs finally gets a hand in there, and all the way to third goes Tim Raines, and Carew lost the throw.
I tell you, this is a real Halloween inning. Now watch when Steve throws the ball. Carew just loses it. He had no idea where that ball was, and the throw coming into Simmons was a short hop. He misses the ball completely, but continues to block Sachs off the plate like a tag team wrestling match. And Simmons does not have the ball at that point.
The ball's about 4 feet to the right of the picture. The three official scorers, Jerome Holtzman of the Chicago Tribune, Randy Minkoff, the Midwest UPI sports editor, and Joe Gigliotti of the Boston Herald. Now they'll put their heads together and we'll get the ruling. But we do know here comes Andre Dawson, and the National League is leading 1-0.
In our pregame show, they talked about one of the reasons George Brett said unpredictable, and here it is, a Halloween inning to begin the game.
Little slider for a strike. They are going to give Carew the error, even though you know he lost the throw completely in the waning sunlight. To count to perhaps the National League's all-around ball player, Andre Dawson, and he's trying to pick up teammate Tim Raines from third.
Ball never left the infield, and there's a run in and a man on third.
2 errors. Tim Raines at third. You might wonder, there's only been one time a player has had to steal a home in an all-star game. It was part of a double steal with Mel Ott. And Harold Pye Trainer at 34 had himself the steal of home.
That's a good look at that Dave Steve slider. It's a hard slider, good control.
Dawson against Dave Steve. Check swing. They're going to look at first. Swing, says Harry Wendelstedt of the National League. So Dawson tried to hold up and couldn't do it. Take another look and you can judge as well. Steve leads the league in strikeouts. What do you think?
I thought he went around.
So did Harry Wendelstedt. So 2 errors, a stolen base, 1 out, a runner at third, and here is Al Oliver. 0-1, Dolly. Oliver's lowest batting average in the last 7 years is .308. That's the kind of hitter he is. That was his off year. 1 ball, 1 strike.
He stands a long way from that plate, and he also has a very small bat. It's almost like a little league bat at 31 inches long, but he really whips it into action in a hurry.
And he hits it down the left field line, foul, out of play. You know, Al Oliver, this might surprise you, is the only National League starter with a career lifetime .300 batting average. But of course, another interesting contrast between the 2 starting teams. 6 of the 8 National League starters began with their original teams. They're still with them. 6 of the 8 American League starters are not with the original team that signed them. There's been a lot of moving around over in the American League. Tim Raines at third. You joined us late. Sachs aboard on the error by Steve, Stoll second, and then Raines aboard when Carew lost the throw in the light. Sachs scored. Raines went to third. Dawson called out on a half swing for a third strike. 3-2 to Al Oliver.
Well, we hear so much about the mysterious world of signals and signs, and here we are in All-Star game, and Simmons, and I'm sure that Gary Carter the same way, we use those same signs you use in high school. There it is. Let's see. Yep, change up.
3-2. And he missed with it, so his troubles are long over now. Without giving up a hit, you have runners at first and third, a run over, and Dale Murphy coming out. Harvey Keene. You know, Keene, when he was a rookie with Detroit, established a major league record. He had 209 hits and 679 at-bats. He could really swing it. In fact, we talk about nostalgia as well as the current date. You remember 1960 when the defending batting champ Harvey Keene was traded for the defending home run champ Rocky Colavito? 4-1. Now that's a blockbuster deal.
Frank Lane was involved in that one. He engineered it.
Dale Murphy, the National League's MVP last year, went to Florida to the instructional league for 5 days, and his teammates said Murphy might be the first man to be the most valuable player one year and the most improved player in the league the next. And he comes up there with Oliver at first and Raines at third, 1-0 National League. Steve struggling with his control now. 2 balls and 1 strike.
Murphy, a real classy young man. In fact, they say that he makes Steve Garvey look like a rowdy.
He's the first Brave to win the MVP since the great Henry Aaron back in 1957. He didn't get cheated on that. 2-2 the count.
So you can hear that ball pop in the mid. I'm sure you can hear it through your set. We can hear it up here. Steve is the kind of a guy you can break in a new glove in the bullpen in about a day and a half.
He had 112 strikeouts to lead the league, and then he nailed Dawson. And now he gets Murphy. So Dave Steve going to try and muscle his way out of the jam. Boy, he had that fastball smoking. And the batter will be Mike Schmidt.
And the ball still hasn't really left the infield.
Sachs hit back to the box, and there was a ground ball that was lost, the throw from Rod Carew. 2 strikeouts and a walk, and the National League sends up Mike Schmidt. When Mike Schmidt was a junior in college, he batted left-handed, and he can still hit balls out of sight left-handed in batting practice. But he has never played a game or swung in a real game. You know, I found out in a trivia book that in 1923, Babe Ruth hit right-handed several times.
Why, I wonder?
Must have been some awfully mean left-handers to turn him around.
Hit a ball that far, you'd want to hit left-handed at midnight.
1-1. Mike Schmidt, his 7th All-Star, and facing Dave Steve. Schmidt's numbers are rather overwhelming with runners at first and third. Schmidt is 4 for 9 with a home run, a triple, and 2 doubles, all extra base hits. Good fastball, 1-2.
You would think you'd be able to pitch Schmidt on the outside corner. He stands deep in that batter's box, and for the real older folks, if you ever saw footage of Roger Hornsby or saw him play, it's about where the Raja stood, but when Schmidt goes into that ball, he really steps directly at the ball, and he's ready when he gets to the hitting zone.
First and third, 2 out with the runner going. Oliver, he strikes out the side. What an inning for Steve. Despite 2 errors, he strikes out Dawson, Murphy, and Schmidt, and the National League gets a gift run and takes a lead of 1-0, and Steve gets handshakes all around.
With the crowd still behind him, Steve prepares to pitch to Tim Raines of the Montreal Expos. And Raines, like Sachs before him, bounces back to the mound. But this time, first baseman Rod Carew loses the ball in the sun, and Sachs races all the way around from second base to score the game's first run. At first glance, the play on Sachs at the plate appeared to be close. But a second look shows that catcher Ted Simmons might have blocked the plate, but he never even had the ball. After 11 losses in a row, the American League might expect these kinds of things to happen, but this year it's starting clean. Something Steve conveys to Andre Dawson of the Expos in a hurry. Next to learn is Dale Murphy of the Braves. And finally, Mike Schmidt of the Phillies. Schmidt might be skeptical, but seeing is believing, and the crowd has just seen Steve strike out 3 of the top power hitters in baseball.
July 6, 1933, almost 48,000 at Comiskey Park for the inaugural All-Star Game. Third inning, and 38-year-old Babe Ruth rises to yet another occasion. Appropriately, it's the first All-Star home run, and Connie Mack's American Leaguers go on to defeat John McGraw's Nationals 4-2. The Bambino is the hero of the first All-Star Game.
Interesting, a lot of people thought that that would be the last home run ever hit, and of course Frankie Frisch hit one in that game. There have been a total of 118 All-Star home runs hit, but it was only right and proper that the Babe should put the seal of approval on it. Mario Soto will be pitching to Gary Carter. You have Al Oliver, Steve Sachs, Ozzie Smith, and Mike Schmidt. Then you have Tim Raines, Andre Dawson, and Dale Murphy in the outfield. Rod Carew, Robin Yount, and Fred Lynn. Soto 9-7, an excellent fastball, and as good a changeup as you'll ever see.
He throws a slider. It's a decent slider, but that changeup really makes the fastball so effective.
That's a strike. Carew hitting .402. He's the all-time vote getter for All-Star games, 30 million plus.
Carew smashes it right through the pitcher's box into center field. Willie Mays comes up throwing, but Freon beats the ball by an eyelash, and the American League draws first blood.
Drilled up the middle, base hit by Carew. First pitch on Seaver. Jerry Morales in center field.
Don Zimmer has never coached at first base at any time in his entire life. Ball is hit out to left center field, and on the run, it's Foster. Can't get it. Carew doesn't care whether it's All-Star game or whether it's Minnesota. He's going for 3, and he will be there with a triple. High to left center. Foster going. Hit deep. Way back. It is off the wall. George blocks it. Carew turns second. Heading for his second successive triple. He's got it.
What a header.
Bangs it into left center field for a base hit. Andre Dawson over to get it, and Carew holds up with a line drive single to left center field. In his heyday as a younger player, he stole home 17 times, but right now, look at his swing.
It's really not a time at bat when he's up there. It's a performance, almost like a recital for him, the way he waves that bat. He adjusts, not from day to day. He adjusts from pitch to pitch is what he does.
Now leading off for the American League, first baseman, number 29, Rod Carew.
But Carew is playing in his 14th All-Star game, and his cool, calm, and collected manner are more than a match for the younger Soto. Carew's leadoff single brings the partisan American League crowd to its feet.
The batter now, Robin Yount. Robin, as you saw his impressive numbers at .315. Boy, that's some lineup for Soto. Carew, Yount, Lynn, and Rice. And if you think you're looking for a breather, then you get Brett.
Yount has good power to right center field. He's got a big gap between first and second. If he gets a breaking ball, he'll smack it right through that hole.
1-0 National League on a couple of errors. Half swing for a strike. We should mention George Maloney of the American League behind the plate, Harry Wendelstedt of the National League at first, Ted Hendry at second, and Jim Quick is at third. On the foul lines, John Shulock is down the left field line of the American League. Dave Pallone of the National on the right field line. There's the change. It looks so much like the fastball until you start to get ready to hit at it. Billy Gardner coaching at first, Joe Altobelli over at third. They're going to check for a swing. No swing, says Harry Wendelstedt. And the count out, 1-2. Fastball. Takes care of Robin Yount, and the pitch was in, so Robin couldn't extend his arms and get any power at all. And now the batter is Fred Lynn. And the first thing Lynn does is take a look at Joe Aldebelli. So far, we've seen a lot of muscle. Remember, Steve struck out the side. Dawson, Murphy, and Schmidt, and now Soto goes to work with a strikeout. Lynn hitting .259 during the regular year, but he's been plagued with injuries.
There was that off-speed pitch that is so effective by Soto. Not only is it the change of speed, but also where he spots it. He really tied up Lynn. Lynn has that gap, much like, well, like Yount had between first and second. He's going to try to pull it through there. Soto knows that.
Of course, Lynn can pull the string himself. He has hit home runs in All-Star Classics against such illustrious names as Tom Seaver, Steve Carlton, and Bob Welch.
In the air, right field deep. It's got a chance to get out of here for Lynn. Gone. Home run. Well, Freddie Lynn has just put the American League on the scoreboard. He drove one out of here to deep right field. And it's now a 4-1 ball game as you look at a happy Fred Lynn.
Well hit, deep to right field, near the wall. Nobody will get this one.
Carew goes. Lynn hits it high down the right side. If it's fair, it's gone. It's in the seats. Home run. American leads 2-0.
You could sense that something was going to happen. And the explosion came.
Two and one to count.
Lynn does a good job, as you see, of giving the third base coach a chance to go through a whole series of signs. You doubt very much if any play is on with the kind of hitters they got, first base being a big gap there.
Check of Carew, he doesn't go. Now they can put a play on if they wish. A little run and hit 3-1. But of course, on deck, there's more sock to come. Jim Rice.
A lot of managers say if you're going to run 3-2, you might as well run 3-1. I think I'd hold him right here, man. I'd let him use the bat all the way.
And especially if Lynn can get something to pull. You have Oliver on the bag, and Sachs is shading up the middle. Right side wide open. Carew doesn't go. And there's ball 4, so here comes the American League. First and second, one out, and Jim Rice, who has been red hot, coming up. When Reggie Jackson couldn't answer the bell, there was a rumor that Ogilvie was going to start, but Rice blazing, and he's the left fielder.
We just got word that first base umpire Harry Wendelstedt was talking about that sun that blinded Carew. He said you just couldn't see at all with that sun coming through there, and it certainly was proven by the throw that Carew just couldn't see and couldn't handle.
One hopper to third, and it gets away from Schmidt. Mike picks it up, throws wildly to first. Everybody's safe as Oliver comes off the bag to handle it. It could have been a double play ball, but the ball was also hit hard, and we'll wait for the triumvirate to make the official ruling.
Here it is. It looks like he was going to make the play. I would rule it air because he was right there. He is an all-star. And there's the close-up. It just hit him right in the old belt buckle, and everybody is safe. And look who's up.
Well, you get the feeling right now it's a Pier 6 brawl. It is only 1-0. But here comes the American League. And instead of a double play to get out of the inning, the bases are loaded. And here's George Brett. And he wasn't cheated in his 8th All-Star game. 0-1 to count. Brett hitting .364. Rice at first, Lynn at second, Carew at third. One away. High fly ball into left center. Andre Dawson angling over. Tagging up at third is Carew. And Dawson's going to throw to third as Carew brings in the tying run. And Lynn and Rice holding.
Schmidt's misfortune opens the door for his counterpart in the American League. And George Brett of the Kansas City Royals responds with a fly ball deep to center field. Rod Carew scampers home with a tying run.
The American League bench is alive. I tell you, they are sick and tired of hearing about losing. This game has been hyped so much about that losing streak, it's almost overshadowing the game itself, which borders a bit on the ridiculous, because when you really add it up, it is still an exhibition game, as great as it is.
So Ted Simmons, who has started all-star games in 2 leagues, he started for the National League in 1978. Coming up with first and second, 2 down and a 1-1 tie, ball 1. By the way, just before Brett hit that fly ball, you might have wondered, has there ever been a grand slam home run hit in an all-star game? And the answer is no. 1 ball, no strikes. A little smoke on that one.
I tell you, the way that ball's popping into the mid, you think you're in a lumber yard and they were stacking 2x4s. It's just splat, splat. He is really firing, as was Dave Steve.
1-1 to count to Ted Simmons, who holds a National League record for switch hitters as far as home runs are concerned. He had 172 while he was over there, and he can still hit them. 2-1 to count. Pascual Perez loosening up down in the bullpen. Ground ball back of first. Oliver is there. He's going to underhand to Soto coming over in time for the last out. So the play goes 3-1. However, the American League, thanks to the error by Mike Schmidt on what might have been a double play ball, and at the end of an inning, a 1-1 tie. One tie as we go to the second. Let's go to New York to Don Sutton and trace a thrown ball.
Thanks, Vin. You know, we really can't show you how fast a ball is traveling. You use a radar gun for that. But with our NBC tracer, what we want to show you folks is how much a pitch moves or slides or curves. You know, a few years ago, somebody tried to convince us all that a curveball was just an illusion. Well, take a look at this Dave Steve breaking ball and tell Steve Sachs that it doesn't break. As the game progresses, we'll trace some more pitches for you, but now, back to Chicago.
That obviously was an overhand curveball, the kind when we were youngsters we called a drop, and that certainly is progress. But you know, Vin, I remember Whitlow Wyatt, the great Dodger pitcher, when they said a curveball is an optical illusion. He said it might be, but I'll tell you something. You get behind a tree 60 feet, 6 inches away, and I'll whomp you to death.
Sure.
So we did it with the tracer. Wyatt did it with his whomper.
Well, talking about a whomper, here's Gary Carter. Carter followed by Ozzie Smith and then Mario Soto. In a wild first inning, we have a 1-1 tie, and the breaking ball missed, ball 2. Well, there's an all-star game record already, 3 errors in an inning. You know, Carter doesn't have as many homers as usual this year, but when you look back, his slump started at the end of last year. He hit only 2 home runs after August 27th, so I think catching took a great deal out of him. Now back, 1-1. He's an interesting player. 78, he set a major league record for the fewest pass balls, 1. The next year, he came right back with a dozen. Curveball, and he hits it to right field, pretty deep. Winfield, however, is there. Blimp Enterprise from Pompano Beach, Florida. The pilot, Captain Patrick Henry Parsons from West Virginia. Enterprise is the newest Goodyear blimp, one of only 4 in the world. Captain Patrick Henry at the wheel. A blimp's eye view. Ball 1 to Ozzie. The Whiz, as they call him. One of the 2 switch hitters along with Raines in the starting lineup. Interesting for Ozzie, he went 4 for 5 in the last game of a doubleheader to get his average to 205. Only one player has ever started in an all-star game hitting less than 200. You know who it is?
I have no idea. Houdini.
Reggie Jackson, of course. Same guy.
Under 200?
Under 200.
In the All-Star Club?
Started on the All-Star team. Well, Ozzie was in a little slump. He was 0 for 29, and he was 17 for 106.
That's not a little slump, then.
He was hurting. Fly ball into left field, and Rice is there, waiting to handle it. And just like that, a couple of fly balls, 2 down. You know, we were looking up at the Goodyear Blimp Enterprise. 50 years ago, 2 Goodyear blimps, the Reliance and the Puritan, floated above the first All-Star game at Comiskey Park in 1933. Keep tying the past to the present. That's the charm of the All-Star game, I guess, more than anything else, and especially this one.
Oh, yesterday was great to see all those Judy Johnson, Buck Leonard.
Whitey Herzog, the manager of the National League, you had a quick look at him. He's done almost everything: player, scout, coach, manager, general manager, and even director of playing personnel. Whitey Herzog. In fact, in the years where he's had a full season, 162 games, he's finished first 4 times and second once. That's about as successful as you can get. 2-2, the count to Mario Soto. 1-1 second inning. High chopper. Cutting across in front is Brett to get him. Go back to the past. All right, how about Carl Hubble striking out 5 of the most feared hitters in a row in 1934.
Gehrig, and next Jimmy Fox go down on strikes. In the second inning, it's Al Simmons and Joe Cronin who fan to make it 5 Hall of Famers in a row for Hubble. After Carl leaves, the American League gets going and wins it 9-7.
Well, you certainly recognize the gray-haired one, Joe DiMaggio. And seated in front of him to the left of your screen, just eating a peanut, Orlando Cepeda.
Yeah, we've got jewels and stars scattered all over the ballpark tonight as Dave Winfield, Manny Trio, and Dave Steve do up. Bottom of the second inning, 1-1 tie. Winfield started for the National League in '79 and the American League in '81 and again this year. He is only one of a few who never played in the minor leagues. He joined the Padres right off the campus of the University of Minnesota. I think there's only 21 players in history to come without any minor league experience. Some of them rather illustrious names like Kaline and Koufax and Frisch and Banks and Ott and Feller. Dave Winfield. After the 1980 season, the Yankees gave him the largest contract in history, and it could be worth more than $20 million by the end of its 10 years, they tell me.
20 million.
1-1. Line drive down the left field line, in the corner, hooking, and goes fair ball. Tim Raines chasing it. Winfield into second, makes a turn, holding there with a long double. To open up matters in the second inning. That is the second hit of Mario Soto. And it'll bring up Manny Trio. Trio is in the record books. He is the first player ever to make back-to-back starts in different leagues in the All-Star game. Winfield, a big guy, is now 5 for 12 in All-Star play. Ball 1. You know, an interesting number. John Lowe of the Daily News in Los Angeles pointed out something. the fact that 5 of the 10 National League pitchers began this year with 7 career wins or less. And they're on the All-Star squad. Ground ball to the right side. Sachs is there. He's had trouble throwing, and he's in the dirt, and he pulled Oliver off the bag.
He has that mental block. He knows it. It was a routine ground ball. Trio trying to pick up a base with an out, and watch him. He just throws it right in the ground. It was an easy play. And Lasorda and the whole Dodger organization just, they're worried about that.
Well, I tell you why. There's the note. And I mean, most of them have been the simplest of throws. And it is absolutely mental now. So in a sloppy first inning and a half, although wildly exciting at the same time, we've had 4 errors. Here is Dave Steve. The infield has to come up a little bit with Winfield down the line. Do you remember Dave Steve with the bat? There's the bunt just to get the man to second. Soto's going to tag him out. We were talking about Sachs's troubles throwing to first base, and it's nothing like showing you. This was against Cincinnati. Bert Hooton was pitching. Pulled the runner off. So Sachs fit to be tied, and in his All-Star second appearance, he throws one away. There's no sense messing around with Carew after the sacrifice, so they will walk him, and the bases will be loaded.
Brother, they're trying to set up the double play, obviously, because you got Yount, Lynn, and Rice coming up. That's like walking death row. You know you're going to have something happen to you. You got a pretty good idea what it is.
So in a moment, Robin Yount will be coming up. We're in the bottom of the second inning in a 1-1 tie. Atlee Hammaker, the left-hander from the Giants, loosening up. In the National League bullpen, Pascual Perez had been up earlier. And in a moment, Robin Yount. Yount, of course, the only man to have 2 4-hit games in the World Series. He did it against the Cardinals. Very much accustomed to the pressure.
Well hit, right field. He's got his 4th hit, home run.
He struck him out the first time, Soto did, by keeping the ball in on him. Now, good hitters, they adjust. They look for pitches. You can bet he'll be looking for something in tight.
Yount's a little hungry. He's 0 for 5 in All-Star game. That's a strike, and he struck out in the first inning. So Winfield down the line from third, Trio at second, Carew at first, and Mario Soto in trouble in a 1-1 tie. In the dirt, a good save by Carter.
There's a great example for the young catcher. You got that base runner on. You don't want to catch that ball. You want to smother it. You want to mutilate it. Watch him just get in front of it with the body, and he just smothered it. And that's just a tremendous play. And that just doesn't happen. You practice that. You feel like an idiot when you're doing it, having a guy bouncing balls in front of you. You go home black and blue, but it pays off just like it did there.
1-1 to count to Robin Yount. Fly ball to center. Dawson is there, tagging up his Winfield. Winfield coming to the plate. Good throw to the plate, but it's late. So Robin Yount, a scoring fly ball to pick up the big man from third and to give the American League a 2-1 lead. Remember, they cashed in the error by Mike Schmidt with a scoring fly ball by Brett.
2 plays here, which were all-star plays. Manny Trio's ground ball, even though it was in the second inning, they picked up a base with an out with a man on second, moved him over, and then the sacrifice fly. They got the job done.
There have not been too many major league plays.
No, there haven't. This has been one of those so far where we don't have to read the disclaimer.
Nope. Here's Freddie Lynn with runners at first and second. Rod Carew and Manny Trio. 0-1. Lynn walked in the first inning. Runs, 2 hits, and 2 errors for the American League. 1 run, no hits, and 2 errors for the National League. Freddie Lynn, for 9 years, has piled up a .301 lifetime batting average in the benches. Well, that's the National League bench with Pedro Guerrero talking to Johnny Bench. Fouled away. Lynn is a native of Chicago, so in a sense he comes home here. 1-2. Got him. So Soto is humming, and he had to go to the muscle to take care of Lynn. However, the errors hurt him, plus the double. And it is 2-1 American at the end of 2. We'll be right back after these messages from your local station.
Another former National League All-Star, second baseman Manny Trillo of the Indians, follows Winfield with a ground ball to second. Trillo's safe on Sachs's errant throw, and Winfield goes to third. Then, after sacrifice by Steve and an intentional walk to Carew to load the bases, Robin Yount comes to the plate for the second time and drives a fly ball to center. Andre Dawson's throw home can't get Winfield, who scores the third unearned run of the game as the American League takes a 2-1 lead. But the inning isn't over for Soto, who must retire Fred Lynn with 2 runners still on. Soto succeeds, getting out of his second consecutive bases-loaded jam.
Dave Winfield got a big base hit. Don Sutton used his tracer, and here it is.
In order for a fastball to be effective, it either has to have speed like Nolan Ryan, movement like Tommy John, or you have to put it in a real good spot. Well, Soto had movement, speed, but he didn't get it in a good spot, and here's what Dave Winfield did to it. Okay, back to you guys in Chicago.
So Winfield, who doubled, then took third on Sachs's error. He would have taken third on the ground ball anyway. But then Steve sacrificed. They might have gotten out of the inning on Yount's fly ball. It could have been the third out. Instead, it was a scoring fly ball. And here is the troubled Mr. Sachs to lead it off. He made his big league debut here in the city of Chicago in 1981. He got a base hit in his first at bat. And a year later, on the first anniversary of his first game in the majors, he scored the winning run in a 21-inning game here. So Chicago means a lot to him. 1 ball and no strikes. You know, it was tough being a leadoff man in the National League last year. Only Sachs, Tim Raines, and Mookie Wilson. They were the only National League players able to hold their leadoff jobs throughout the entire season. 2-1. Did you ever have trouble throwing the ball?
Yes.
Let's say back to the pitcher.
Yes, sir.
He hits it back to Steve and over to Carew.
It's a difficult thing, man. It got to where you get up and you throw the ball and you just can't turn the ball loose. Watch this replay, and the crowd reacted. That was a curveball right back to Steve, and he kind of sets himself, and he's not going to throw this one away. I would practice. I'd go out and get maybe 5 feet from a pitcher and just lob it back, work my way back to the catcher. It's a mental thing. That's all I can tell you. I can't explain it.
Tim Raines takes a strike, 0-1. Raines was aboard when Carew lost the throw in the twilight, although actually there was a lot of sunlight piercing through the stands. 1-1.
I can name you 2 other guys. Mike Ivey had that problem, and Dale Murphy, I believe, as a catcher, had that problem. If he couldn't hit, he may not be in the big leagues today.
1 ball, 1 strike. And then there are pitchers who got so they couldn't throw strikes. A fellow like Rex Barney, who threw a no-hitter and suddenly just couldn't do it.
Kevin Saucier,
who just quit because he was afraid he might kill somebody. He was so wild. Fouled away, and that was over in the high rent district. Yes, right where the commissioner of baseball had hit, directly in front of him.
Commissioner's having enough troubles with the job, and look at the happy Chandler, and look who's seated behind him. George Burns. And Raines is caught looking.
4 strikeouts for the American League strikeout leader, Dave Steve. Now, the record for most strikeouts in an all-star game is only 6. Hubble, Vandermeer, Jansen, Larry Jansen, and Ferguson Jenkins. And here's Dave with 4 strikeouts in 2 2/3 innings. Andre Dawson struck out on a half swing in the first inning.
Boy, you have to like this, Steve. When you throw that hard, as big a breaking curveball that he has, control of both, he comes right at you.
And you get a lot of Dawson. He's played the entire All-Star game each of the last 2 years, so he usually gets a lot of at-bats. High fly ball to right field. Winfield on the track at the wall. Makes the catch. So Dave Steve goes through 3 innings, allows an unearned run, no hit, strikes out 4. And he was thoroughly magnificent. And at the end of 2.5 innings, the American League 2 and the National League 1. As we go to the bottom of the 3rd inning, and this 50th anniversary All-Star game from Comiskey Park in Chicago. And the American League leading 2-1. Mario Soto will have called it a night and a game. Mario went 2 innings, allowed 2 runs and 2 hits, 2 walks and 2 strikeouts. An error cost him a run in the first inning and also in the second. And left-hander Atlee Hammaker of the San Francisco Giants coming in. Hammaker, as Cal Yastrzemski stands quietly waiting his turn. 18 All-Star games. I hope we see him in this one and bench.
They're saying goodbye. Hammaker has a good slider. The thing they say about him, though, you got to be ready to hit because he comes right at you with good control. So when he takes the mound, he's going to throw strikes. There's no waiting and checking him out. Slider is his out pitch.
You know what he did in April, Joe? He was the pitcher of the month. And you know why? Very simply. In the month of April, from April the 13th through the 23rd, so a little more than 10 days, 11 days, he allowed only 5 batters to get on base. He got 58 out of 63. I mean, he was totally unbeatable.
Why wouldn't you sign to 5 batters?
Yeah, they did. Right away. 5 batters. 5 batters. His earned run average is close to the record. It's 1.7. And the lowest for a left-hander in the modern era from 1920 to date, the great Carl Hubble, was 1.6. So he's something. And so is Jim Rice and George Brett and Ted Simmons. Rice was aboard what looked like a double play ball kicked by Mike Schmidt in the first inning. And he popped it foul out of play, 0-1.
They weren't going to wait. First pitch by Hammaker. He went to work on it. There's no sense trying to get a base on balls.
Rice doesn't mess around anyway, as you see Monty Irvin. Another great name out of the past. Rice is a killer on the road. 15 of his 22 home runs have been hit on the road. He has a mere .631 slugging percentage when he has a suitcase in his hand. Jim Rice, 0-2. 1-2.
There was the classic example of the ball player not showing up the umpire. He didn't like that second call strike, but he kept looking towards center field and made his speech. You can stay in a lot of games that way.
And he probably hammers it to left. Raines goes back. It's gone. Home run on the road for Jim Rice.
looked like somebody was pouring milk. It was just a white blur from home plate to left field. It never got up, it never got down, it just went straight out. And look at that American League bench. They're tired of hearing about losing 19 out of 20.
Well, they're leading 3-1. And the batter now is George Brett. He had a scoring fly ball in the first inning. That left field wall is 9 feet 10 inches. So it was just a low line drive that landed right there in the picnic area. I always remember a home run hit here in the '59 World Series. Al Smith was standing there and somebody knocked a big bucket of beer and it went on his head, remember?
That's right, he got the beer shampoo.
But Raines did not have any rain. There's a drive to center, but Dawson has to get it high for the wall. Brett is going for 3, and the relay by Sachs is too late.
Here's a look at it. It looked like Dawson might get to it. It wasn't even close. It just sunk. It had overspin on it. And Ted Williams used to hit him like that. It just sinking all the way, and Brett has himself a 3-base hit.
You know, it's interesting not to wear you out with numbers, but George Brett has a triple. He's led the American League in triples 3 times. The only other player to do it is the immortal Ty Cobb. So to see Brett triple, what else is new? And the batter now is Ted Simmons, and the infield halfway. And Hammaker's been lathered. Rice a home run, Brett a triple, and the count 0-1 to Simmons. 3-1 in favor of the American League. Popped it up on the right side. Sachs is calling. Tagging is Brett. And Sachs will run it back in. 1 away. Boy, I'll tell you one thing, if you're a pitcher in an all-star game, there are no soft spots. There are no breathers. Here you are wading through Rice and Brett and Simmons. Now you get Winfield.
That's why they're here, I tell you.
Well, Winfield hooked a double in the left field corner in the second inning, remember? And came around to score on the fly ball by Robin Yount. You know, Winfield was born on a very historic day in baseball history, just to link the past with the present. His birthday is October the 3rd, 1951. That was the day Bobby Thompson hit the home run off Ralph Branca to give the Giants the National League pennant over the Brooklyn Dodgers. And Dave Winfield was born that day. All right, big Winfield trying to pick up Brett. The infield is halfway, and the American League is leading 3-1 as George comes down the line under the guise of Joe Aldebelli. And a big chopper up the middle makes it 4-1 American League.
They didn't waste any time on Hammaker. They just went to work. First pitches, they went to whacking. And Winfield drives it in. And he's a base-stealing threat.
He wasn't talking about baseball, but Winston Churchill once said the price of greatness is responsibility. Taking the responsibility full in their charge, Rice homers, Brett triples, Winfield singles, and the great ones have given the American League the 4-1 lead. And here's Manny Trio. Four runs, 5 hits for the American League. 1 run, no hits for the National League. Line drive, base hit into left field. Winfield will stop at second on a single by Manny Trio. And the American League is after the National. Joe Aldebelli wants to make sure Winfield is okay. Doug DeCinces is coming out of the American League dugout. Winfield hit the bag oddly at second, and Aldebelli gestured out there, and Winfield said, "No, I'm okay." And here is Doug DeCinces of the California Angels. Take a look at the way he hits it, Joe.
He had ideas about going to third, and instead of looking at the bag, he was watching Raines in left field. And then when he put the brakes on, he needed those radial shoes and get a little grip with some studs. He slipped, but he's all right. And we're going to have a pinch hitter. See him looking at the outfield. He's not once took a look at the bag, and when he sees he can't get to third, whoops, I better make me a U-turn here.
So Doug DeCinces is sent up there by Harvey Keene to hit for Dave Steve. DeCinces was third in the MVP voting last year to Robin Yount and Eddie Murray, and he has 5 numbers this year. He has 15 home runs, a .300 batting average, the only American leaguer up there with those numbers. 0-1. Twice in the month of August last year, DeCinces hit 3 home runs in a game. He wound up with 30. So he's got a lot of sock.
Hit that dramatic home run in one of our Saturday games of the week in Detroit. And Sconyers tied it up in the 9th, and he won it in extra innings.
He's up there now with Winfield at second, Trio at first, 1 out, 4-1 American League. A high fly ball into right center. Dawson and Murphy, and Dawson is the captain out there and makes the catch. So DeCinces a fly ball to shallow center. 2 down, and Rod Carew coming up.
You talk about numbers, and we all know Carew is a good hitter. Carew has 808 multiple hit games.
All right.
You round off a season to 160 games. That means for 5 seasons, every game he got 2 or more hits for 5 years.
The only other story I love better is the one you figured out on Reggie Jackson, remember?
Yeah, but I can identify with the Reggie Jackson, but the only guy I can identify with that is Superman.
Way to the plate. Raines' throw is way off the mark. Picked up by Schmidt. Down to Sachs, who drops the throw. Holding at third is Trio. 5-1 American
League. Mike Schmidt couldn't get anything on the throw. It wasn't handled at second base. You can see the hesitation. If he'd have held that ball, he's out, but the ball is laying on the ground. You can see it. And so everybody's safe. And not only is the American League just whacking the baseball, they are really running the bases well.
Throw, I think, might have had him.
He was the umpire at second base, ready to call him out.
Well, now they're going to walk Robin Yount, and that'll load up the bases. You got to tell it again. You know, the Reggie Jackson, the other side.
Oh, well, we were doing that game in Detroit. You said he struck out 2,126 times. I said making the 500 times at bat one season. He went 4 years without hitting the ball.
And he made the All-Star team one year hitting less than 200.
And speaking of multiple hit games, Carew's got another one tonight. It doesn't even count.
And Jim Rice beaming in the dugout. He started it all with a home run. Freddie Lynn will be the batter. Robin Yount is at first. Rod Carew is at second. And Manny Trio is at third. Freddie Lynn walked and struck out. For Freddie Lynn, and there's Jim Rice, who led it off with a home run on deck. Once has Lynn ever managed to play 150 games in a season. It's been his big trouble. The other side of a coin, Eddie Murray, whom we'll see later, has never played under 150 games. So the American League, 1 in the first, 1 in the second, and 3 in the third. They have pushed Atlee Hammaker around, and it is 5-1 American. 1 ball, 1 strike.
They had a close-up of Hammaker. If you're wondering what that button is, that's that famous Croy the Candlestick. If you stay for an extra inning game, you get awarded this medal, I guess you'd call it. because it does get cold in Candlestick Park. There you see it.
And Candlestick Park, the home of next year's All-Star game. 1-2 the count to Freddie Lynn. Lynn, surprisingly, has really been struggling with men in scoring position, and he's got the bases loaded. He's hitting less than 200 with men in scoring position. He out at first, Carew at second, Trio at third, 2 out. And he drives it to deep right. Back goes Murphy, away back, and there it is, the first grand slam in All-Star history. Hit by that man, smiling Fred Lynn.
Here's his time at bat. Watch the reaction. He knows he touched it off. He's watching it. The American League is a bit upset, man.
What an inning. 7 runs in the 3rd inning. And look at Fred Lynn as he has just knocked in 4. We'll be back with more fireworks. 9-1 American. And cheers for the American League here in Comiskey Park. It's a record-setting inning. 7 runs in an inning. Back in 1934, the American League scored 6, but 7 is a big one. And Bill Dawley, the kid who literally came from the back of beyond, from nowhere, is pitching to Jim Rice. Dawley is only the 3rd player in history who began the year in the minors and airs a downcast hammocker. Curveball is popped up on the right side, and Sachs says he has it. So Rice homers and popped up, and the 3rd inning goes in the record books. And at the end of 3, the American League 9 and the National League 1.
In the bottom of the 3rd inning, San Francisco's Atlee Hammaker makes his All-Star debut, and it comes against the heart of the American League lineup. Cleanup hitter Jim Rice is first for Hammaker, and on his 4th All-Star pitch, Rice sends a liner deep to left field. It's going, and it's gone. His first All-Star home run will undoubtedly be a golden memory, and it gives the elated American League a 3-1 lead. With everything now going their way, George Brett eagerly awaits what Hammaker has to offer him. A line drive to center, gets by Andre Dawson and rolls to the wall as Brett goes all the way to 3rd. Hammaker then gets Ted Simmons on a pop to 2nd for out number 1, but things don't get any easier when Dave Winfield comes to bat. Winfield's ground ball eludes the drawn-in infield and scores Brett as the American League increases its lead to 4-1. By now, the crowd can sense something different about the American League's mood, and with Manny Trio batting, the Nationals are hoping for an inning-ending double play. But Trio lines a single to left as Hamaker's nightmare continues. Pinch hitter Doug DeCinces flies to center field for the second out. Rod Carew comes to the plate for the third time in 3 innings. And for the second time, Carew singles, bringing home Winfield with run number 5 as Trio goes to third and Carew takes second on the throw. In an attempt to stop the now snowballing rally, right-handed hitting Robin Yount has walked intentionally to load the bases, with the hopes that the left-handed Hamaker will have an easier time with the left-handed hitting Fred Lynn.
Let's go, Freddie.
As Lynn steps to the plate, all the pieces needed for a golden memory are now in place. For Lynn and his all-star teammates, the pressure of the moment is tremendous because they know that in the span of a few seconds, all the frustrations and heartaches of 11 years of losing have a chance to be wiped out. With a traditional White Sox song. It also pleases Lynn's teammates and caps a picture-perfect inning in which the American League sent 10 men to the plate and scored an all-star record 7 runs.
The American League devouring the National League with a 7-run third inning, a record inning for all-star play. And they lead the National League now 9-1 as they drove Adley Hamaker to cover. They had 2 unearned runs against Mario Soto, and then they rolled a big 7 against Hamaker. There was a triple by Brett, singles by Winfield, Trio, and Carew, a home run by Rice, and a grand slammer by Lynn. And Lance Parrish from Detroit will handle Texas Rick Honeycutt. What an inning, Joe.
A big inning, and of course there goes that National League speed when you give your pitcher that big a lead. That cuts down a lot of things that you can do. Honeycutt, when they talk about him, the name of Tommy John comes up. He keeps the ball down, sinker baller, throws more slider than a curveball. Pretty good control. So Honeycutt is a new pitcher, Parrish the new catcher.
In fact, talking about him being another Tommy John, somebody did a little percentage, and there's a line drive fair on the line. Chasing it is Jim Rice, and into second base goes Al Oliver with a double. They were saying that over 70% of all the outs recorded by Honeycutt are ground balls, and Oliver promptly opens up with a double. It's one of those nights.
This could be the Fats against the Leans. The last time at bat's going to win it.
And that, by the way, is a hit for the National League. Right on the chalk. Dale Murphy, who struck out in the first inning, coming out. Fouled away. Honeycutt last year was about as far from an all-star game as possible as you look at Dale Murphy. Honeycutt last year was 5-17. And this year in the all-star game.
Vin, I look at this Murphy and I marvel. He's a great athlete, but such a classy young man as I was at a couple banquets last year. I'm convinced somewhere on that body is a good housekeeping seals.
1-1, and he drives it to right center field for a base hit. So Oliver is on his way to score, and holding with a long single is Dale Murphy. for 3 innings, gets a double from Oliver and a single by Murphy for the run.
Here comes Lynn coming over, and cutting in front of him is Winfield. He's an aggressive outfielder, and you get everything you can get your hands on. He does, and fires it right back in there.
So Dave Winfield, the $20 million man, makes the throw in, and the batter is Mike Schmidt. Mike Schmidt might be the strongest man in the National League. Once in a game in the Astrodome in Houston, he hit a speaker which was 117 feet high and 329 feet from home plate. And the loudspeaker was suspended from the roof. There were runners at first and second at the time. The ball hit the speaker and dropped, and nobody knew what to do. He didn't even get an RBI for it. They have since raised the loudspeaker. Ground ball down to shortstop. Fielded by Yount. Over to Trio. Back to Carew. Double play.
Oh, what a play by Trio. He didn't even wait to let that ball hit the glove. He took the toss from Yount in the bare hand, and with that great arm, watch it now. Now, here comes Murphy. He's going to try to take him out. Look at Trio. Just bare hand, and there she goes, and it's not even close. Beautiful play.
Meanwhile, Oliver comes home. Manny Trio, back-to-back starts for 2 leagues. He's something. And it is 9-2 American League, and the batter is Gary Carter. Ball 1, 1-0. Carter flying to right in the second inning. His father is here with him. His dad is celebrating his 65th birthday today. Fouled away. 1-1. So the National League got a couple of errors from the American League to pick up a gift run. The National League committed some errors to give it back in the first, made another big error in the second, and it was 2-1 American. And the American League then exploded for a record 7 runs in the third inning. Carter hits a fly ball into somewhat shallow center. Freddie Lynn is right there. So the double play put the blocks to the inning. And the National gets a run on 2 hits, nobody left. And the score at the end of 3.5 innings, American League 9 and the National League 2.
Thanks to Lynn's heroics, the American League now holds a 9-1 lead. And Texas' Rick Honeycutt has come on to face the Expos' Al Oliver, who leads off the top of the 4th. Oliver serves one right on the line and makes his way to second with an easy double. Despite being down, few in the stadium think the National League is out of the game, especially with a powerful lineup that includes the National League leader in home runs, Dale Murphy.
The next batter, right fielder, number 3, Dale Murphy.
Murphy's single to center is the Nationals' second hit in a row, and it scores Oliver with its second run of the game. However, that's all they'll score here when Honeycutt gets out of the inning.
Johnny Bench went out to help warm up Bill Dawley and then retired to the dugout. We're hoping to see him in the game before it passes into history. Bill Dawley, the young pitcher on the mound, is quite a story. And there, of course, Carl Yastrzemski was also in his last All-Star game, and we're sure hoping Yaz gets in. Here's a kid who began the year in the minor leagues and is in the All-Star game. He is only one of 3 ever to do that. And George Brett hits a fly ball down the left field line, and Tim Raines over in the corner to make the catch and foul ground.
Well, we joined everybody else in asking young Dawley what it felt like to go from the minors to the All-Star game.
Well, I've been asked that question many, many times since I've been here for about 24 hours. And probably the nicest adjective that I can describe it is I'm just completely numb, especially right now, a few hours before game time. I just hope by the 7th or 8th inning when I'm in there, everything will calm down and I can get these American League superstars out.
Well, they'll be looking at a superstar now in Lance Parrish in the count 0-1. In case you wonder, the other two rookies who started in the minors and made it to the All-Star game that year, Don Schwall with the Red Sox and Don Newcomb with the Brooklyn Dodgers. And now I add the name Bill Dawley, who is traded from Cincinnati to Houston. So down goes Parrish.
And he stalks the mound. He's about over at third base. He's going to just have a little visit.
He's no doubt very high-strung. As he said, he was hoping he would settle down. Pretty good way to break in, get Brett on a fly ball, strike out Parrish, and now here's that man Winfield again. The National League remains Oliver, Sachs, Smith, and Schmidt, Raines, Dawson, and Murphy. Carter behind the plate. And there have been 3 National League pitchers, Soto, Hamaker, and Dawley. Winfield has a double and a single. He has scored twice, driven in 1.
I like this big kid. He wants that ball. You know, everybody has different expressions, and I asked Terry Kennedy, and I was asking some of the other National Leaguers about this young kid, and they said, well, he's got good gas, which means he throws hard. He's got great smoke. He brings a lot of heat. So obviously it's his fastball that impresses everybody.
Bill Dawley. He's 25. And there's a base hit into left field. So Winfield goes 3 for 3, a double and 2 singles. And in his all-star career, Winfield is hitting .500. He's 7 for 14. What a man for the spotlight.
He's had a pretty good night so far. 1 run driven in, 2 runs scored, 3 base hits.
That's 9 hits for the American League. And here's Manny Trio. He was aboard on the throwing error by Steve Sachs in the 2nd inning and single to left in that wild 3rd inning. The count to Manny Trio. Dave Dravecki beginning to loosen up for the National League. Breaking ball missed. The pitch you spot is due up 2nd in the 5th inning for the Nationals. There's Dave. Hit down the right field line, foul, and out of play.
It's a good bullpen here in Comiskey Park, and if you wonder why I say a good bullpen, ball players, at least those of us who lived in it most of our lives, we think it's good when you're away from the manager and close to the fans. You don't
Virtual obscurity.
That's right. You don't hear him moaning, and you can get fed.
Breaking ball fouled away. Yeah, you can warm up under an assumed name out there.
Some of the bullpens, you can't do anything. Look how far they are. I mean, it's way out there in right center field. There's no way the manager can look at you and see what you're doing.
Pretty hard to stay in the game, too, out there, though. That's the problem.
Well, you got a radio, you got the fans.
And the food. A drive to left field by Trio, but Raines on the track is there to make the catch. The Winfield gets a base hit, and they leave him. No runs, 1 hit. It's 9-2 American. We'll be right back after these messages from your local station.
The American League hitters know about Dawley, but how about Don Sutton, the tracer? Let's look.
All right, Joe, there have been very few good pitches for us to trace since Dave Stieb left the game, but Dawley shows us right here a very good slider. And what's a slider? A short, quick breaking ball that looks like a fastball till it's too late to do anything about it. Just ask Mr. Parrish, okay?
You know, Vin, I think we ought to point out that's not animation, that it's memory, that's the track of the ball. Sometimes you get the idea that somebody's drawn it. That's the way the ball went.
It really illustrates. I'd like to see a slider on that. I'd like to see a slider moving in on a hitter. I don't know. That would be the one to look at.
You know what I'd like to see?
What's that?
Knuckleball.
Okay. Look who's coaching first base. Ernie Banks has taken over for Joe Torre in the National League's first base coaching box. And it's going to be Ozzie Smith, Dickie Thon, and then Steve Sachs duo. 4-1, 1-0. Ozzie Smith flying to left field in the second inning. Switch hitter, right-handed, and as you can see, no power. In there. He is without a doubt the most acrobatic shortstop to ever play the game, and I hope somewhere in the course before he comes out the people see him. They saw enough of him in the World Series.
Will you ever forget him going out the last game and doing a backflip?
Yeah, he is a true acrobat. 1-2. And he hits it in the hole and grounds it into right field. So the National League trying to get off the deck, and Ozzie Smith singles against Rick Honeycutt. The batter now will be Dickie Thon. The case of a young player who is really just starting to come into his own. He's the only National League shortstop hitting over 300.
This young man could be the shortstop of the 80s. He is a tremendous ball player.
Now another note with Ozzie Smith at first. Thon was the third toughest player in the league to double up last year behind Joe Morgan and Mookie Wilson. And he's the number 3 hitter in the Astro lineup. I don't think in his early days as a reserve shortstop with the Angels that he would ever think he'd be a number 3 hitter, but he has 10 home runs. And there's a base hit banged into left center. Ozzie will go to second and hold there. So Honeycutt is not fooling people. And with first and second and nobody out, you have Sachs, Raines, and Dawson coming up.
Ball was well hit as we look at Harvey Keene and Pat Dobson. And of course, with that 7-run lead, the National League, they have to play station to station. Whitey Herzog can't put any plays on. It's get the first, get the second, get the third. And you can't be tricky.
Well, Steve Sachs, you remember he hit the little nubber back to Dave Stieb, who shot-putted the ball over Carew's head for an error. And then Sachs stole second and eventually scored. Last time up, he hit back to the box. So he's 0 for 2 with a run scored, and he's committed an error. Ball 1. Runners at first and second. Thon at first, Smith at second. So pretty good running speed out there.
Lasorda at third base, his manager, he'd really let him have a blast with that swing.
I bet. Not Babe Ruth. What's got him crazy, Sachs that is, he has already made more errors than any second baseman in the major leagues all of last year. And he hits it to the hole, base hit. Here's Ozzie Smith around third, and he will score to make it 9-3 American. And there's nobody out in the 5th inning.
Robin Yount really gave that a good effort in trying to knock the ball down. Now you see Brett is in your picture. In a minute you'll see Yount make a dive trying to knock it down. He really did a half gainer hoping that he could knock it down and save a run. And that's why he's the most valuable player.
Single gets Ozzie Smith home from second with the National League's 3rd run of the game.
So Yount comes up empty after a great effort. He almost knocked his numerals off. And you have Steve Sachs at first. Dickie Thon is at second. And Raines aboard on an error and struck out at the plate. Ball 1. Bob Stanley is up and loosening up in the bullpen. Ground ball to third. Brett on the bag, goes in the dirt to Trio. Safe, but now he got him coming off the
bag. Steve Sachs umpired to play. Here it is again. Brett wisely steps on third, 1 out, makes the low throw, and watch what happens. Now, Sachs tried to take him off and didn't make it back.
And the call by Ted Hendry. Take another look.
Just slid right by the bag and umpired it. And never did get back. Good work by our camera crew.
And a big play as Andre Dawson comes up. Dawson has struck out and flied to right.
I guess it's typical, Ben. There's a guy hitting with a double play, Raines, and he's still on base.
Yes, that kind of a night.
It is Halloween.
Jim Raines held on by Rod Carew. 2-1, and there goes Raines. The throw by Parrish, not in time. He had a sidearm and he threw a sinker, and it was a pretty good save by Trio. Raines is to third base.
It was a foul tip held on to, and Raines, even though the score 9-3, there he goes. He gets himself a stolen base. Trio really handling a lot of low throws.
Raines had 18 consecutive steals during the regular year, but he was picked off twice. So now Dawson trying to pick him up and get a little bit closer. 2-2. He hits it down the right field line. Foul. Back in amongst the customers.
Here's the throw by Parrish. Now the ball, he backhands it and really doesn't get on top of it and kind of sidearmed it. Didn't have it by the seams. You could just see it kind of sink. While I got a chance too, Vin, George Burns is going to sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," and we're going to listen to some of it after this inning.
Another foul out of play. George Burns, he always said he takes his lady friends home, and then he has a piano player play some songs, and then the piano player takes his lady friend home. And he said, I've outlived 4 piano players. He is marvelous.
Oh, what a guy. One of my favorites. Everybody's favorite.
2-2 to Andre Dawson. Fly ball. They had it on the hands and coming over his Winfield. And that's that. They pick up a run. At the end of 4½, it's 9-3 in favor of the American League, and one of the great wonders of the world and a treasure of the country, Mr. George Burns. Take me out to the ball game.
Is a gentleman known to all of us.
They said to him one time, George, why don't you ever date women your age? And he said, there are no women my age.
Ladies and gentlemen, a special for George Burns.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I not only sang this song at the first All-Star baseball game, but I also sang it at the first baseball game. The umpire was an Indian. Okay, let's do it. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back. Oh, well, root for the home team. They don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Ladies and gentlemen, George Burns.
Thank you.
So the American League still had a 6-run lead when the crowd took a break from the action on the field and welcomed a comedic all-star to Comiskey Park, George Burns, who led them in a rendition of Take Me Out to the Ball Game.
Okay, let's do it. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks.
On the afternoon before the All-Star game, nearly 30,000 fans and Commissioner Bowie Kuhn took themselves out to Comiskey Park to see the greatest gathering of stars ever assembled. The occasion was the first old-timers All-Star game, and a total of 88 former major leaguers were there, including 41 Hall of Famers and 13 players from the inaugural game in 1933. It was a perfect time to reminisce, a perfect time to take a retrospective look at the golden memories that have gilded baseball's past. The All-Star old-timers participated in a 3-inning game that was remarkably well played. And the highlight of the afternoon belonged to a former member of the Chicago Cubs, Billy Williams, who hit a home run into the upper deck to give the Nationals a 6-5 win. And the crowd, a day they'll long remember.
I don't care if I ever get back home. We'll root for the home. They don't win this game, for it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the all-ball game.
9-3 American as we go to the bottom of the 5th inning, and several changes. St. Louis sends in Willie McGee in center field for Andre Dawson. Glenn Hubbard takes over at second base for Steve Sachs. Dickie Thon, who batted for Dawley, stays in the game at shortstop for Ozzie Smith. And the new pitcher is Dave Dravecki. Now, if you are keeping score of this one, Gary Ward from Minnesota is up there hitting for Honeycutt. Ball 1. Your leadoff man is Glenn Hubbard. Then you have Raines. Then you have Dravecki in the number 3 slot. Then Oliver Murphy, Schmidt, and Carter remain the same. McGee bats 8th, and Thon, who hit for the pitcher and stays in, bats 9th. 1-1. 1-2 to Gary Ward. Ward really blossomed last year. He hit 28 home runs, 91 RBIs. That's the picnic area, which is underneath, really, and behind the left field wall. That's how it looks if you're down there. A drive to center, and McGee's going to get his feet wet if he can catch up to it, and he does. So he no sooner gets in the game, he handles a fly ball. Interesting, too, to see Ward come up there and hit. The contrast. We were talking about Winfield not playing a game in the minor leagues. Ward spent 8 years in the minors before reaching the big leagues. Some guys have it so easy, and some have to struggle so hard. And here's Rod Carew. Carew tonight singled, walked intentionally, singled again. He's 2 for 2. Dave Dravecki pitching against one of the great hitters in the game, Rod Carew. Dravecki had won only 5 Major League ball games before this year. He was a 21-round draft pick of Pittsburgh, and here he is on the All-Star team, piled away.
I think it's amazing the way Carew can adjust, not from day to day, but it seems like from pitch to pitch. He has all kinds of different stances, just complete control of that strike zone.
Ground foul. Just imagine, he has hit 300 or better for 14 consecutive seasons, and he's now challenging the 400 barrier. Rod Carew. Comebacker, and Dravecki has it, and underhands to Oliver. So 2 down in the 5th inning, and Robin Yount coming up.
One of the things about Dravecki that I like, he's not afraid to come inside to the right-hand hitter with that fastball. And you saw him do it with Ward. Let's see if he does it with Yount. He'll come into that kitchen.
Robin Yount struck out, had a scoring fly ball and walked, and he hits one up the middle. Dickie Thon behind the bag over to Oliver. Good play. So Yount losing a base hit on a good play by Dickie Thon of Houston. And at the end of 5, the American League 9 runs, 9 hits, and the National League 3 runs, 5 hits. Next Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, it's NBC Sports World. Live coverage of a scheduled 10-round middleweight bout between WBC super welterweight champ Thomas Motor City Cobra Hearns and former light heavyweight champ Murray Sutherland. Hearns stepping up in weight class. Sutherland is stepping down, which could prove to be a very interesting bout from Atlantic City. Also, Survival of the Fittest continues, featuring the men's River Bridge duel, plus Sports Journal, all next Sunday on NBC Sports World. Cal Ripken has taken over at shortstop for Robin Yount. You had a quick look at Eddie Murray at first base for Rod Carew, and Bob Stanley is on the hill. Al Oliver has walked and doubled. He's 1 for 1. Stanley has more innings pitched than any reliever in the major leagues. Little chopper wide of third. Brett on the run will throw to Eddie Murray. 1 away.
Stanley has a hard sinker that he throws. He's got an outstanding pound ball and a slider. If you see somebody looking off stride, it'll be that pound ball. And he's been accused of maybe loading one up once in a while.
You know, he's one of those fellows, he can enter a game in any inning and finish it. In fact, once this year, he pitched 10 innings in relief and got a no decision. In fact, not until June did Stanley allow to score a run. A runner who was on base when he ended the game. Strike. Dale Murphy struck out and singled to right to drive in Oliver in the 4th inning. Fouled off. Crowd in the 40s. Of course, it will not be as large a crowd as the first one. They've rearranged Comiskey Park a great deal. You know, it's interesting. We take 2 million attendance a year for granted, and 3 million now. You know the first year and what team drew 1 million?
Had to be the Yankees.
No, sir. Chicago Cubs.
When they draw 1 million?
1927.
Well, I was just here.
Yeah.
My father just came over.
Tonight's paid is $43,801. High pop-up. Eddie Murray will handle it.
You know, during batting practice, talking about this big ballpark, watching guys hit the ball close to the roof, that Ron Kittle and the home runs here. I just wonder how far Reggie Jackson's home run in Detroit would have gone in this ballpark, because that ball was hit 9 miles. It had gone over that roof.
Here's a guy who can hit it over the roof. When you talk about home runs over the roof at Comiskey Park, the history books tell me that there have been 21 home runs to clear the roof in either left field or right field. The first guy to do it was Babe Ruth. The last guy to do it was Greg Luzinski just 2 weeks ago.
Look at Kiner and Maris. I bet those two big guys can do it. Johnny Mize in the front row. Enos Slaughter, Charlie Gehringer right in the middle. Wally Berger in the middle of your screen. Hal Newhouser, Prince Hal Schumacher. Oh, what great ball players.
I was hoping in talking about those home runs. Keep going.
There's Ed Roush. Ed Roush, 90 years old. See him right? He's just signing the autograph now. And he showed up. And Sammy West in the front there. Al Kaline in the front row next to West. Oh, does that get me excited?
That's great. Good for you. We're talking about home runs and home runs over the roof here at Comiskey Park. If you look straight out into center field, you can see the bleachers, and it's like they're out of state. Hank Greenberg hit one in the bleachers. And only 2 men have ever hit the ball out of the roof or over the roof twice, Jimmy Fox and Ted Williams. Little nubber to Eddie Murray. And that'll take care of Mike Schmidt. So the National League tiptoes through the top of the 6th inning. Coming up, Reggie Jackson's home run in Detroit in '71.
To find the last American League All-Star victory, you have to go back to 1971 and Tiger Stadium in Detroit. Young Reggie Jackson of the Oakland A's faces Pittsburgh's Doc Ellis. And a monumental drive off the light transformer on top of the upper deck in right field, a drive that would have traveled more than 500 feet had it been unobstructed. The list of home run hitters in this game reads like a baseball who's who. Bench, Aaron, Killebrew, Clemente, Frank Robinson, and Reggie Jackson, who helps the American League to a 6-4 win.
Indeed, a welcome to you from Comiskey Park in Chicago. Fred Lynn, who had the Grand Slam home run, the first in All-Star history to really put a light to the record 7-run inning, will lead it off, and we have several changes to give you. We don't want to do it on horseback, so let's take our time. Behind the plate is Bruce Benedict of the Atlanta Braves. At first base, Darrell Evans of the San Francisco Giants. The 1-1 pitch, ball 2. At third base, from the Los Angeles Dodgers, Pedro Guerrero. And in right field, getting a big roar when it was announced, Leon Durham. Ground foul. Oh, there's Leon. So, defensively, the National League stacks up this way. Evans, Hubbard, Thon, Guerrero, Raines, McGee, and Durham, Benedict behind the plate, and Drevecki on the mound. And it is 9-3 American League, bottom of the 6th inning. Fred Lynn, when he hit his grand slammer in the 3rd inning, it's the 4th All-Star home run in his career. Boy, that's riding the elevator, huh? Grand slam home run and then strike out. 1 away. If you wonder, the record for home runs in All-Star competition for a career, Stan Musial with a half a dozen. Of course, huh?
Yes, and Stan was here and got a touch of the stomach flu or something and had to go back to St. Louis. We understand he's in the hospital feeling much better, and he's probably watching it. So he's got the harmonica out playing the Wabash Cannonball right now.
Our prayers for a speedy recovery.
We'll send Chuck Mangione in to help him.
Here's Jim Rice. He was aboard on an error. He had a double play ball, and Mike Schmidt kicked it in the 1st inning. But then he homered in the 3rd and popped up in the 3rd. So Rice is 1 for 3. 9-3 American League, bottom of the 6th. Knocked the glove right off Benedict's hand.
Well, they don't really grip that glove anymore like they used to. You can see it's almost like a pair of tweezers, and they've got the sponge that cover the index finger. They got the other glove. One finger's out of there. You do everything but catch the ball with your hand. You catch it right into the webbing.
I wonder if he gets good reception with that finger like an aerial out there. I wouldn't do that with Dave Steve pitching, I'll tell you.
First guy I ever saw do that was Yogi. There was nothing scientific about it. He said my finger hurt.
1-1. Ground ball wide to 3rd, under Guerrero's glove, and through into left field. We'll see how they rule it. And it'll be a base hit. So Jim Rice bangs it just under Guerrero.
Here's a good look at it. Guerrero just doesn't get to it. It's past him. I think if you'd asked Lasorda, his manager, what he should leave at the hotel, if he had to leave something, it would be his glove. But be sure to bring your bat.
There's George Brett. Had a scoring fly ball, tripled and scored and flied to left. And he drives it over the roof foul, almost behind the plate. The memories that come along. You know, in 1906, Upton Sinclair wrote a book called The Jungle. It really gave the city of Chicago kind of a punch in the ribs, tough place. But 1906 was also the only Chicago White Sox, Chicago Cubs World Series. The town was really alive. In case you care, the White Sox won that series 4-2. But trying to tie the past to the present.
What kind of a year did Upton St. Clair have?
He had a very good year, thank you.
Okay.
0-2 the count.
Oh, Upton, pretty good hitter, wasn't he?
Like the ball up.
You know, talking about Musial, I'll never forget that home run he hit in Milwaukee because it's extra innings. And I remember he said to Yogi, I'm getting tired. I want to go home. Yogi said, me too, and Stan hit the home run off Sullivan.
Brett fouls it away. Well, of course, the last All-Star game played here was marked by home run in 1950. You remember Ralph Kiner came up and hit a home run in the 9th inning to tie, and Red Schoendienst hit it out in the 14th, and it was time to go home.
And he told Jocko Collin when he was in the field, he said, I'm going to hit one out. When he got to second base, he said, how about that, Jocko? I didn't lie to you.
One and two the count at George Brett. Big crowd having a ball, predominantly American League fans, and they saw the American League just take the wheels off the Nationals wagon in the 3rd inning. A 7-run 3rd. They lead 9-3. 2-2. Brett, a tobacco chew. Did you chew any tobacco?
Sadly, I admit that I did, but I don't anymore, and I wish they would all stop it.
Yeah. High foul out of play. I remember Don Zimmer, who always chewed tobacco, finally convinced Pee Wee Reese, who had never chewed tobacco. You should try it. And Reese had been in the big leagues, you know, 1,000 years. There's a master tobacco chewer. In fact, so is Pat Dobson. Anyway, Pee Wee tried to chew it. He swallowed it on the first ground ball.
I got hit at home plate and swallowed it. What happened to Pee Wee?
That'll leave the game. Yeah, Brett foul tips and strikes out. You know that shot of Harvey Keene? If you played trivia with him, there are 2 things I'll remember about Harvey Keene forever. He made the last out twice in Sandy Koufax no-hitters. He was with the Giants, and he hit a comebacker to the mound in 1963, and then he struck out when Sandy Koufax pitched a perfect game against the Chicago Cubs.
2-2 to Harvey Keene. 1 strike away. Sandy into his windup. Here's the pitch. Swung on and missed. A perfect game.
But he still chews tobacco.
And I tell you, you talk to a tobacco chewer, you walk away and you look like you got the measles. They talk in sprays.
What I hate is when they carry their own cup. Oh, what? That ball's hit foul, out of play. 0-1. Lance Parrish finishing up for Simmons. There's Pee Wee. Pee Wee Reese, the captain of the Dodgers.
He's just had a knee operation. He was out there limping.
1-1. Well, it's 9-3 American. If you're wondering why we're talking chewing tobacco, we're in the bottom of the 6th inning. Lou Brock.
Minoso right next to him.
Now back. You know, we're talking about Carew stealing home 17 times. Gehrig stole home 15 times. The great Lou Brock. You know how many times he stole home?
No.
Uno. Once. One time.
Huh. You know. Look at Minoso. He scored from first on a base hit in the Old Timers game yesterday.
He didn't get hit by a pitch?
No.
It's remarkable. He led the league like 10 years in being hit by pitches. 1-2 the count to Parrish. And he hits a drive to center. Willie McGee floating over. And makes the play. So a single and a man left. Red Schoendienst hits a home run in the 14th inning in 1950. Remember?
The last All-Star game to be played at Comiskey Park was among the most memorable. The Americans led it 3-2 until this 9th inning homer by Ralph Kiner of the Pirates tied it at 3. Earlier, Kiner had been robbed of an extra base hit by Ted Williams, who crashed into the left field wall and broke an arm. Now, this is the first All-Star game to go extra innings. And in the 14th, Red Schoendienst of the Cardinals, not known as a home run hitter, sends this drive over the wall and left, and the National League goes on to defeat the Americans 4-3 in 14 innings in the 1950 All-Star game.
The American League changing the outfield. Ben Ogilvie will now take over in right field for Dave Winfield. In center, Willie Wilson picking up for Fred Lynn. And the roar went up when Ron Kittle took over in left field. Durham, followed by McGee and Thon. In the 7th inning, 9-3 American, smothered by Big Stanley, who throws him out. As far as the National League is concerned, then, outside of pitchers, you have Terry Kennedy, Johnny Bench, Bill Madlock, and George Hendrick, who have not seen action. And for the American League, still on the bench, Cecil Cooper, Lou Whitaker, Carl Yastrzemski, Bob Boone, Ricky Henderson, excluding pitchers. One and one to McGee. He had the longest sitting streak in the National League, 19 games. Multi-talented kid, out in the early part of the year with injuries. High chopper over the mound, charging shortstop Ripken, throws to Murray in time. McGee beating the throw.
McGee spent a lot of time with Cool Papa Bell. Of course, Cool is from St. Louis. Let's watch the play again. And McGee likes to feel like he reminds Cool Papa of himself because of that great speed. And you can see here, he had base hit on his mind all the way.
Ripken throwing on one leg, so he couldn't get the ball over there too much hurry, and McGee beats it. So one out infield single, and here's Dickie Thon, who's single. Big chopper back a third, foul, and down the line.
I think one of the greatest colorful descriptions of all time was Satchel Paige talking about Cool Papa Bell's speed. And he was so fast that when he turned the light out, he could be in bed before it was dark.
Yeah, right.
That is a great word picture.
You know, and we've been trying to do it tonight because the 50th anniversary, as McGee takes the lead. One out in the 7th. Ground ball to Brett. He short hops at the bag, goes to second for one, to first, not in time. So the force play 5-4. Talking about Satchel Paige, we'll take a quick look at the play at second base and then get back to Satchel.
Watch Trio when he gets the ball. Is he on the bag? I would say he was just in the neighborhood, which is all that counts. It's a neighborhood play.
2 down, and Glenn Hubbard coming up. When Satchel Paige was 59 years old, he pitched for Kansas City against the Boston Red Sox. It was his last game. He gave up a base hit. It was a double in the first inning to Carl Yastrzemski. Yastrzemski is the last player to ever get a hit against Satchel Paige. Satch went 3 innings, left the game leading 1-0, made only 28 pitches. You know who Satch's manager was? He took him off the field. Haywood Sullivan.
Oh, for crying out loud.
1-1. Here's the bearded wonder, Glenn Hubbard.
One of the Stone Mountain boys.
Looks like he came off a cough drop box, but he can really play. He's the only National League second baseman hitting 300. And with a runner going, he hits a one-hopper and eats up Ripken. And everybody's safe. Boy, that thing exploded. I'm going to say that Benedict is a little guy, but he can... Hubbard is a little guy, but he's got a lot of power. And Bill Madlock is now going to come up and bat. We haven't gotten a report yet on that ball that just about took Ripken's buttons. Bill Madlock, 3-time batting champ. Almost got him. Ball 1. And it'll be a base hit on that hard ground ball to short. So 2 hits off Stanley and 7 hits. And he drives it to left. However, Kittle is there. And do they love it?
All right, we're up
15. We got this game won.
Yeah, you guys are buying a light beer from Miller. Yeah, let's Philly.
One out to go. Yeah, what can he do to his mouth?
Hey, keep the change. Here's Rodney! Any pinch hitters left?
Here I am.
Come on, ladies!
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
Hey, wait a minute. This game isn't over yet. I caught that ball.
Right now, the way these guys were hitting tonight, we were beginning to think we weren't going to have any pitches to trace for you. Bob Stanley here shows us that there's more than one way to make a fastball work for you. He has good speed, puts it in a good spot, and tremendous movement. Fortunately for us, he got it far enough outside that Durham couldn't swing, so there it is. We can trace it for you. Back to Chicago.
It is 9-3, American League, bottom of the 7th inning. The roar is for Ron Kittle, Chicago's favorite, coming up. Meanwhile, a couple of changes as the crowd salutes Kittle. Pascual Perez is the new pitcher. Bill Madlock, who batted for Tim Raines, has stayed in the game at third base, and Pedro Guerrero has gone into left field. Ron Kittle. He was in the Dodger organization, and in 1978 he had a spinal fusion. He had a pinched nerve in the neck caused by crushed vertebrae, and he was released. And last year he hit 50 home runs in the Coast League. What a wonderful story. Lou Whitaker is on deck. Pascual Perez is a guy who he wears more jewelry than Sammy Davis Jr. I swear to you. And it used to be he would wear it coming into the ball game. And they objected. They said all that gold, that glitter, it was a distraction. And he'd stand on the mound and take 10 minutes to take all the chains and gold medals off and around his neck. Maybe 6 or 7 of them. Harry Wendelstedt saying no swing. But now you see, well, he's wearing one. Get it in there. But some days he came in there dressed for Buckingham Palace. He's a character. 1 and 2. Ground ball to the hole at short. Backhanded by Thon. Sets for the throw. Safe. And Kittle is on with the infield single.
Well, that makes the hometown fans happy, but Mr. Thon is putting on quite a display. He didn't get his man this time, but look how deep in the hole he goes. Braces himself. He knows he has to get rid of it now. Couldn't get a whole lot on the throw, but he made it awful close.
That number 7 slot in the American League lineup is 4 for 4. Winfield was 3 for 3, and now Kittle gets a base hit. And here is Lou Whitaker hitting for Trio. And the great young Tiger will then stay in the ball game. So they're getting him in. And on deck, and that's going to be one of the great moments when he comes up, is Carl Yastrzemski. High drive into right center. McGee going back, and this ball is against the wall. Whitaker into second. Here comes Kittle to score, and Whitaker to third. Singles, and Lou Whitaker triples him in, and now a great moment to remember. Carl Yastrzemski. A standing ovation.
to talk about goosebump time, huh?
It's great.
The infield is in, and Yaz was going out. 0-1.
He was trying to dilate with that one long distance.
Times an All-Star. Fouled away. Last Triple Crown winner. Been with the Red Sox for 23 consecutive years. 2 more RBIs this year, and he'll have 1,800 accomplished by only 11 players. Three American in the 7th inning. I want to salute some people as we go along. The executive producer of NBC Sports, who presented this tidy and tasty package tonight, Michael Weissman, and the coordinating producer for NBC Baseball, the great Harry Coyle. The telecast of tonight's All-Star game, and a low bow from the waist to George Finkel, and directed by Harry Coyle, and to all of the others who labored long and hard to bring it to you. But meanwhile, it's 2-2 to Yaz. Little number foul. He has been equal to the occasion in his career in All-Star games. He has hit .303 with 1 home run and 5 RBIs. What might be the heaviest ticket sale as Whitaker's down the line from 3rd is October the 2nd, Sunday in Boston. It's not a game with the Yankees. That'll be a game between the Boston Red Sox and the Cleveland Indians, and it figures to be Carl Yastrzemski's last game, and I'll bet you time will stand still at Fenway.
The Fens will be there. Great fans.
3-2. Corner. Tough way to finish it, huh? And he still gets an ovation, and well, he should. Yastrzemski with that great smile, and Carew grinning. There's a picture. Carew and Yastrzemski grinning over a strikeout. Eddie Murray at the plate. 0-1. 1-0.
You talk about ball players that you can describe as franchises. Here's one. Eddie Murray.
He was second to Robin Yount in the MVP last year. Got a Gold Glove. Rookie of the Year in '77. Ground ball to first, fielded by Darrell Evans. Whitaker holding at third. That was a nice play by Darrell. That ball seemed to be taking tricky hop. And will he see some action?
Oh, I'm sure he will. They'll do the same for him. Johnny Bench. Evans played that like he was a pickpocket. Just reached down. There it was. Watch this play. Ball is hit pretty sharply, and he plays it behind him, and hello there.
In looking at the American League, those men who have yet to see service: Cecil Cooper, Bob Boone, and Ricky Henderson. And for the American League, we're just counting pitchers. In the National League, Terry Kennedy, Johnny Bench, and George Hendrick. So despite the one-sided score with that 7-run third, they have seen a lot of stars tonight. Cal Ripken finishing up at shortstop for Robin Yount. Look out, that got away but not far enough, and Whitaker holds at third. Cal Ripken, the Rookie of the Year. Along with Eddie Murray, he was the only Oriole to play every game this year.
3 balls and no strikes, and his manager coaching at third. You don't think they might turn him loose to see if he can tear out a row of seats in left field? I'd sure be looking for him to swing if it's his pitch. Joe Altobelli is doing quite a job over at Baltimore.
Isn't he, though? 3-0 to Cal. Well, he didn't have much of a chance to go after that bad one. Ball 4. That'll bring up Willie Wilson.
talk about speed, you have to put this fellow, Willie Wilson, among the top 2 or 3. In fact, I think he's the most productive, destructive player as far as the opposition that's in baseball. He gets on. He makes it rugged. He inside the park home runs. He chops and runs. He's exciting.
You know, we're talking about the fact he has 11 of his 14 home runs are inside the park. Can you imagine Babe Ruth hitting an inside the park home run? You know, with the big tummy and the skinny legs. 714 home runs. Babe Ruth had 10 inside the park home runs.
Where was he playing? In the Grand Canyon?
Must have been all downhill. Henry Aaron hit 755 home runs. You know how many home runs inside the park he had?
No.
You got it. No. None. Zip. Nada. And there's one drilled into the right field corner for Wilson. That gets Whitaker home. And stopping at third is Ripken. And it is 11-3 American League. Boy, in a game like this, you got to keep digging. I mean, when you get to Ruth's home run inside the park, you know you're shoveling.
Here comes Whitey out there. Did you read our disclaimer yet?
No. By the way, the record for most clubs, one club for most runs, the American League in 1946 scored 12. Well, they have 11 so far, and runners at second and third. Pasquale is gone, and they're singing at Comiskey. Vin Scully with Joe Garagiola. Whitey Herzog said at the press conference it would be good for the American League to win. He wouldn't mind if they won. He wouldn't throw the game to let them win, but he wouldn't mind it. It looks like he's going to get his wish.
I think he may. I don't know. I know he's not throwing the game, and he better not mind it because these American Leaguers have just been whacking that ball all over the place. There's been no flukes. They've just been hitting.
Yeah, the National League has just been hammered to its knees, and Jesse Orozco has just come out of the bullpen, and we shall blunder onward.
Blunder? Okay. Let's blunder onward.
Blunder onward. Jesse Orozco. 4-4, but the ERA is the thing that gets you, 1.3. And he'll be pitching to Ben Ogilvie. Ogilvie, the right fielder. Well, let's see. Hendrick and Bench, and then you get to Lavelle, Smith, and Valenzuela. So they're trying to get them all in. Orozco came to the Mets from Minnesota for Jerry Kuzman.
Ogilvie's one of those hitters that keeps that bat busy as we take a look at Willie Wilson, who's down at second base. Ripken's on at third. It's almost like Ogilvie, the batter, it's not a self-starting bat. He's got to get it cranked up and pump the handle. He's got to prime it. Watch him get it going.
Ogilvie, you might remember, he just hit a grand slam home run Monday at Cleveland in his first at bat when they said he was going to replace Jackson with that kind of a swing. Fouled away. Interesting. Ogilvie has only 7 home runs, 3 of them in one game against Boston. But he has 3 home run games in his career. That's not only the most for any active player. It's just one behind Lou Gehrig's all-time record. You wouldn't think of him as being that close to a hitter like Gehrig, but he is in that department. Johnny Mize, who's here taking in the ball game, he holds the all-time record. He had 6 3-home run games, and you see Lee Smith and Steve Rogers in the National League bullpen.
Oh, I hope that Smith comes in. You'll see some smoke. He really fires the ball.
1-2.
high pop fly down the right field line. Curling foul. Evans over to the tarp and can't make it. Almost, but not quite. Harry Wendelstedt had a good view. Take another look.
Evans gives it a good chase. He knows exactly where he is. He kind of gets tripped up here as his knees hit that tarp, and over he goes, and gave it a great chase.
And Fenn was giving it a chase, too. Look at the ball. And Harry Wendelstedt right there to see it roll.
Good umpire.
He sure is. Oglivie got jammed, so he had to get another bat. He's one of 3 players in Brewer history who's tied Reggie Jackson for the American League home run title. George Scott tied Jackson in '75. Oglivie did it. '82, Gorman Thomas did it. Down he goes. However, the American League adds 2 more, and at the end of 7, 11 runs, 13 hits for the American, 3 runs, 7 hits for the National.
That's a shot right to garbage. Steve will make the play himself. 2 down. Now here's Bob Uecker with Johnny Bench.
Thank you very much, upstairs gang. And right here we got Johnny Bench, as you can see, really keyed up about tonight's game. John, earlier this year on a Monday night telecast, you talked maybe this might be your last year catching. True or not?
Yeah, this is my last All-Star game catching. I feel like I've had enough, and I don't want to break your record. I've had 13 of them, and I know if I go much farther, I'll break your record.
Back upstairs, guys.
Way to go, Johnny. Catch you later.
As we move to the 8th inning, Ricky Henderson takes over in left field, and Ron Kittle moves over to right, which is kind of nice. The fans can cheer him. It's like halftime at football, just when the other team is going to score on the goal line. They move you around. And Matt Young takes over on the mound. Johnny Bench will now make an appearance. We saw Carl Yastrzemski hit for Bob Stanley and strike out. And in a moment now, we'll see what's in store for Bench. So the people left, Cooper and Boone for the American League. And in the National League, Kennedy and Hendrick, excluding pitchers. Johnny Bench saying goodbye. Like Yastrzemski, he gets a standing ovation, and he has credentials you could read for an hour. You know, it's interesting to see these two calling it a career because of free agent economics. High pop fly on the left side. Brett and Ripken, and it'll be Ripken.
Almost Alphonse Gaston there.
I was thinking, though, that, you know, Bench and Yastrzemski, it could be. They might be the last great players to spend their entire careers with one team. And we might be saying goodbye tonight to both of them.
That's right. You don't see that too often.
No. So Darrell Evans coming up. Darrell Evans, who's been picking it, as they say, very well with that glove at first. He's kind of remarkable in the sense that this is his second All-Star game. What's remarkable, it's 10 years apart. You don't imagine a guy to come back 10 years later. But here he is. He was in the All-Star game in Kansas City in '73. Of course, that was the year he had 41 home runs. Aaron and Dave Johnson each hit 40 that year. Matt Young, certainly one of the outstanding young pitchers in the American League. Boy, do you hear his name a lot. Evans slicing one to left center field. A diving, rolling catch by Wilson. Oh, what a play by Willie.
I'm telling you, he's the about that catch. He started with 2 hands. Usually the guy tries to backhand it.
He's caught it 4 times now, so I guess he's got it for sure.
He's got it.
2 down. Willie Wilson coming up with a defensive gem of the night, and now Pedro Guerrero, who took over for Mike Schmidt at third and then went on out into left field, is coming up. Strike. 0-1.
Say Willie in center field, you deference to the great play. You don't think of Willie Wilson, you think of Willie Mays, don't you?
I saw so many great plays by him. I thank my lucky stars I was able to see him play at his best. Matt Young working on Pedro Guerrero. 1 ball, 1 strike. We're in the 8th inning. 11-3. Favor the American League. So the Nationals' 11 consecutive winning streak about ready to go down the drain. Got him looking. So Guerrero is caught looking. Well, we saw Willie Wilson make that sensational play. Let's turn the clock back and look at 24. Buck Willie Mays.
Willie Mays was among the most heroic players in All-Star history, just ask the Yankees' Whitey Ford. In 24 midsummer appearances, the Giant star hit over 300 and belted 3 home runs. And in the field, well, Willie was stylish as always. Willie Mays.
You think you guys back there in Chicago are digging for something to talk about? You should see us back here in New York looking for good pitches. Well, Matt Young provided us with a perfect one here, and one that I found in the American League since I've been over here to be thrown a lot. We call it a backdoor slider. He throws it almost like a spiral on a football, starts it off the plate, breaks it over the corner for Pete Guerrero. It looks outside, breaks over like a curveball, and what can he do? He can't take it, he can't swing at it. Back to you guys.
Backdoor slider.
By the way, the MVP in tonight's game will also be the NBC Miller High Life Player of the Game. Miller High Life will be happy to present a check for $1,000 to the Special Olympics in his name. That player to be announced later on. Well, the big guy is out on the hill. 6'6", 235 pounds, standing out like a beacon here in Chicago's Comiskey Park. Lee Smith.
He's got to be about an 8 on the seismograph, isn't he? Huh?
He's the one who said that he had a dream last night that he was going to strike out Dave Winfield in the game tonight. But, of course, Winfield's long gone, so he can do his best with George Brett, Lance Parrish, and Ron Kittle. Ball 1. Cecil Cooper is out on deck. So that means we will have seen them all as far as, except Bob Boone in the American League. National League, you have Terry Kennedy, George Hendrick, plus some pitchers.
George's shoes are a bit different. Look at the one on the right side. He's got it kind of spotted in there with the blue, and the other one doesn't. He got 2 different kind of shoes on. He's got a pair like that in the clubhouse, I'll bet.
He gets confused which is for the left and which is for the right.
I tell you, that's carrying the endorsements a bit too far, though, to wear different shoes in the batter's box.
It's called a split account.
I see.
Well, you know, Cincinnati, they were going into arbitration. They wanted to wear special shoes so they could get some money, and I don't know the outcome of it.
Still in arbitration.
Still in the shoebox. It is 11-3 American League here in the 8th inning. And big Lee Smith, 6'6", 235.
He's got to have a birthday on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, don't he?
Look at that earned run average, 1.3. Ground ball up the middle, but there's Hubbard, and he can't backhand it. And Brett will make a turn, go for 2. The throw in the Thon, he's in there. Boy, that's hustling, 11-3.
Well, that's why you like George Brett so much. It's not just his bat. Hubbard, it looked like he was going to be able to backhand this ball. It goes under him. He just didn't get it, and he stays right with it. You see him chase it to the outfield, and he's watching to see what happens to Brett. But George, he doesn't get any help from the coach. He did it on his own. There's the slide, and he's safe. Good hustling play.
They have not yet flashed whether it was a hit or an error, but apparently those 2 shoes helped. Come on, lefty. Come on, righty. And now here's Cecil Cooper. So only Bob Boone yet to get in there. And it will be ruled a double. A double for Brett. So George has had a double, a triple, and a scoring fly ball. And here's Coop. So Cooper hitting for Parrish. By the way, the American League now with 14 hits. That's the most since the National League had 14 hits back in 1954. So Cooper hits for Parrish, and Bob Boone will go behind the plate, and then all of the American Leaguers will have gotten in the game, excluding pitchers. Fouled away. Harvey Keene, along with a very happy American League team that has pounded the National League. 11-3. Snapping an 11-game losing streak and snapping the absolute domination. 24 out of the last 26. And that's line to left field. Base hit. Brett is to third, and they will hold him. And the throw gets over Madlock's head, but Benedict handles it. And now here comes Ron Kittle. Shortstop in the 7th inning. And with runners at first and third, we have Cooper at first, Brett at third. Here's Kittle. And after Kittle comes Lou Whitaker. Oh, 1. Evans, Hubbard, Thon, Madlock, Guerrero, McGee, and Durham defensively. And there's Kittle country in left field. And it gets away from Benedict, and down to second base goes Cooper.
He just handcuffed him. Bruce didn't get a chance to shift on the ball. I would think it would be a pass ball. He just throws so hard. That's one of the tough things when you've never caught a pitcher and he's under some pressure in this all-star game. Watch the pitch. It just handcuffed him. He didn't move and hit him right in the heel, and runner advances, pass ball. At least I think so. That's what they call it.
2-0 the count. 11-3 American League. Bottom of the 8th. Infield is up. Taking a little heat. Boy, he would love to bust one, wouldn't he?
Oh, wouldn't he though? Wouldn't he though?
What makes it great, this is the crosstown rivalry. A Cub versus the Sox. Boy, to come back from a spinal fusion and play in the big leagues, you really have to be thrilled for him.
Billy Pierce gets a lot of credit for it.
2-2. So down goes Kittle as Lee Smith punches him out. And now the batter will be Lou Whitaker. Whitaker tripled in the 7th inning. The American League now 11 runs, 15 hits. The record, the 54 American League club had 17 hits. It's been a record 7-run 3rd inning, and the American League has also had the first Grand Slam home run in All-Star history, that by Fred Lynn. So it has been quite a night. High fly ball to left field. Guerrero going back on the track in the corner, backhands and dropped it. It's a fair ball. In comes Brett. Cooper stops at third, and it is 12-3 American League. So Guerrero, an outfielder who converted to third base, goes in the outfield in the All-Star game and drops one.
And that's exactly what he did. You'll see it. He's got a bead on it. Looks like he's going to make an easy play out of it. Whoops, hit him right in the middle of the glove. He bumped his head as he went in there, although it's padded. I tell you, unpredictable. Goblins are out, then.
It's a little bit like a fat man's picnic.
That's what it is.
Put a keg of beer at first, a keg of beer at third, skins against the shirts, and let's have some fun.
Let's go.
It's a sacrifice fly, so no at-bat, an RBI, and an error.
I got the jackpot, didn't he?
Got everything but the keys to the city. Here's Ricky Henderson, ball one. With 12 runs, that ties the record in the All-Star. In 1946, the American League scored 12.
Would you like to have a baseball clinic and say, well, we're going to show you young people the All-Star game. This game played by the best in baseball. And we put this on. Looks like something that the Marx Brothers would be managing.
Ricky Henderson is really an oddity. He is the only All-Star. As you can see, Commissioner Kuhn might be calling to... What do you think he's doing? Calling for an editor?
They're talking to each other.
Oh, that's a short-distance call.
That's right.
Hello, Commissioner. Yes, don't turn around. But Ricky Henderson bats right-handed and throws left-handed. And that is odd. You see a lot of left-handed throwers who bat right-handed. But very rarely do you see this combination.
You don't think it's President Reagan going to congratulate the winning team, do you?
No.
Okay.
It might be a George Bush call tonight. He played first base for Yale. He can understand this kind of a game. 12-3 American League. Busted bat, ground ball to Thon, over to Darrell Evans. Scoring is Cooper. So Henderson grounds out, but he gets a run batted in, and it is now 13-3. It's a new record for All-Star competition. I use that word competition advisedly.
Okay.
Well, let's see, 16 runs, 22 hits, 5 errors. And here's Eddie Murray.
They're going to have plenty of highlights.
Whoa.
A lot of highlights.
Film at 11. So Lou Whitaker at second base. Ground ball, backhanded by Evans. Overhands to Big Lee coming over. It's like tossing the ball to the Colossus of Rhodes on the move. And they finally get the out. So add 2 in the 8th inning. And in this little gem through 8 innings, American League 13, National League 3.
About the only thing we haven't seen tonight, the way their hitters have been hitting, is a wild pitch. Well, we got you one. And how do you throw a wild pitch? Well, you grip a fastball, a curveball, a slider, you rear back and let adrenaline take over. If you're a pitcher, what you hope happens is a catcher gets a glove on it. Maybe they'll call it a pass ball. You give up an unearned run. Back to the shootout in Chicago.
Sure, Don. Blame it on the catcher for a pass ball, right?
You know, right?
Yeah, shootout.
There is Bob Boone, who becomes the last of the American Leaguers to get in the game other than pitchers. And on the mound, Dan Quisenberry. This telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball.
I think this one you could do without written consent.
There was somebody on the phone with the commissioner.
That's right.
Trying to get written consent.
Right. Okay, we won't fool around with it. There may be some people want to retransmit this one.
Well, here's Bruce Benedict. He's all smiles. He finishing up behind the plate. Terry Kennedy and George Hendrick are the only two National Leaguers other than pitchers, and all of the American Leaguers have now been in it. And there's a line drive into right field, base hit for Benedict. Kittle gets the ball back in. Don't forget, next Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 30 Rock. The latest news in the world of sports. Then the California Angels travel to Boston to meet the Red Sox, or Milwaukee Brewers play the Chicago White Sox. Check your local listings for the game in your area on the home of baseball, NBC Sports. Timeout. Terry Kennedy, who had been down in the bullpen, is making that overnight hike to the dugout. Here he comes. The last of the Mohegans, along with George Hendrick. Leon Durham. Strike. That's some delivery by Quisenberry.
I was in Detroit for a Charlie Gehringer affair, and Eldon Auker was there, and I mentioned he threw like that. Eldon Auker was a submariner.
That's a strike. 0-2.
Quisenberry throws a sinker because he throws that way. He has a rising breaking ball. It's like a big roundhouse American Legion curveball, and he throws a knuckleball.
You know what Quisenberry says? He says the last time the American League won an all-star game, he was working in a fish restaurant in Southern California. That's what he says. Maybe. He does say strange things.
He's a perfect relief man. Nothing phases him.
Strikes out against Quisenberry. Wasn't that something? No wonder they have trouble hitting him. Look at this delivery.
It's the knuckleball. Here it is with 2 strikes. Underhand knuckleball, and he just swung over it.
And now here is Willie McGee hitting in the number 8 slot with Dickie Thon batting 9th. High fly ball into right center field. Wilson and Kittle, and it'll be Wilson. So the National League now down to its last out, and Dickie Thon will be the batter. Dickie Thon had a base hit back in the 5th inning, but the ball game was just about all over by that time, thanks to the 7-run 3rd inning. Fouled away. So in essence then, the American League is going to snap an 11-game losing streak. They had lost 24 out of 26, and we'll go back to the opening remarks as you look at Benedict at first. The American League had won only 1 all-star game since Kennedy was president, since Pete Rose had broken into the major leagues, since a Washington senator was on the American League team, Frank Howard. Has arrived. Big chopper to 3rd. Brent goes down to 2nd, and this one is history. The totals again for Harvey Keene and his victorious American League team. 13 runs, 15 hits, and 2 errors. And the National League, 3 runs, 8 hits, and 3 errors. The lights of Comiskey Park, where it all began in 1933, shine a little brighter tonight because the home of the American League has come up on top. We'll be right back.
The 1983 game is almost a memory now, too. In the bottom of the 8th, the American League scored twice more, and this time it's their turn to bring on a relief specialist to get the last 3 outs of the game. It's up to Dan Quisenberry of the Royals. And after a leadoff walk, he gets 3 quick outs. The American League wins its first All-Star game in 12 years.
Friends, the MVP in tonight's game will be the NBC Miller High Life player of the game, and that will be Fred Lynn, who's grand slammer in the 3rd inning, the first in All-Star history. So Miller High Life happy to present a check for $1,000 to the Special Olympics in the name of Fred Lynn. What a tremendous thrill for him.
That it was for Fred Lynn, as you see him rounding the bases, and he really reacted to it, and you can hardly blame him. Jim Rice hit a home run that same inning, a low-line drive. As we look at Lee McPhail, and McPhail has to be a happy man. Dick Butler, who's in charge of the umpires.
Well, you know, next Saturday, our Game of the Week coverage continues with the star-studded California Angels and Mr. Fred Lynn at the Boston Red Sox, or the Milwaukee Brewers here at Comiskey Park against the White Sox. Check your local listings, and now stay tuned for the Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, following local news except on the West Coast and most Mountain Time Zone stations where it will be seen at its regular time. For Joe Garagiola, this is Vin Scully, wishing you a very, very pleasant good evening on the 50th anniversary from Comiskey Park, where the American League beat the National League 13-3. Chicago, it's the home of the 50th anniversary of the All-Star Game, and Comiskey Park, where it all began.
Over the first 30 years of All-Star play, the leagues have been close to evenly matched. But during the next 2 decades, the senior circuit had taken charge.
We worked very hard at showing our dominance at that time, and at that particular time, we were dominating the American League.
The American League is hoping to sweep away the unpleasant memories of 11 straight losses.
That was my 9th All-Star appearance.
From the California Angels, Fred Lynn.
And prior to that, we'd lost every game that I'd ever played in an All-Star game.
The American League has won 1 All-Star game since 1962.
And as American Leaguers, we were really tired of hearing about it.
The opening festivities are now just memories, and it's time to play ball.
In the 3rd inning, what began as a shaky, error-filled exhibition quickly escalated into an AL onslaught.
We went ahead of those guys 3-1. In fact, my ex-teammate Jimmy Rice had hit a home run off Adley Hammaker.
And he hammers it to left. Reigns goes back. It's gone. Home run for Jim Rice. So they're leading 3-1.
And look at that American League bench. They're tired of hearing about losing 19 out of 20.
After Rice's round tripper, the AL sent 9 more batters to the plate in what became the highest scoring inning in All-Star history.
Well, now they're going to walk Robin Yount, and that'll load up the bases. And Freddie Lynn will be the batter.
Now, that doesn't really set too well with me at any point in my career, and I've made people pay for that.
Let's go, Freddie.
Got to 2-2, and I looked for that slider, and I got it. Little fist pump, and I never did that kind of stuff. I didn't want to show anybody up. But I was just happy that I knew we were going to win.
What an inning. 7 runs in the 3rd inning.
We ended up winning that game, I think, 13-3.
The American League wins its first All-Star game in 12 years. It's a win that was built on a combination of solid pitching and a 3rd inning explosion.